Chapter 12:31. No one knew whether Long Chen's words were true or false, but everyone present had heard them clearly. At this moment, they had also fallen into a vicious cycle similar to the heavenly god of light's bloodline. Even if someone harbored evil intentions, they wouldn't dare to act rashly. Everyone glanced at each other, and they all saw a hint of shock in each other's eyes. Long Chen's thoughts were like a fierce tiger, but he was also abnormally meticulous. Just this mentality alone was already enough to make it impossible for him to destroy everyone. Long Chen brought Qing Xian to the place where the Tao of Calamity had once resided. The Tao of Calamity was located at the highest point of the entire Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. This place was a grayish-white palace, and the palace was filled with gray-robed people of the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline. These people were originally the trusted followers of the Tao of Calamity. Not long after the two of them entered the palace, the leader of the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline came to pay his respects to Long Chen. They only wanted to tell Long Chen that they wouldn't betray him. Although they had followed the Tao of Calamity, they were all traitors and believers of the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. At this moment, there was no place for them outside the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. After a short conversation, Long Chen allowed them to remain at their post. However, he called Elder Su into the palace. Within the entire Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation, he trusted Elder Su the most. After all, he had saved Elder Su's life. That day in the Sea of Light, Elder Su had guessed his identity and was willing to protect him with his life. This was enough to explain everything. Elder Su's cultivation was profound. With him in the palace, even if there were traitors, he would be able to deal with them. By the time Elder Su had finished arranging everything, it was already dark. However, he didn't leave. Instead, he went to find Long Chen again. The people of the Empty Spirit Land asked me to capture the person who informed you that day. The 3 divine emperors I sent out found him outside the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. He kept saying that he wanted to see you and tell you what he heard when he left the Heavenly God of Light's bloodline. Long Chen raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "Let him tell you what happened. If he doesn't want to talk, just kill him. If he is willing to talk, then spare his life. Cripple his cultivation and let him live in the city." Elder Su nodded in agreement, seemingly agreeing with Long Chen's decision. "Let's not talk about this for now. The Heavenly Harmony God Nation has already been exposed, so we must relocate as soon as possible. Otherwise, there will be unavoidable variables." Long Chen nodded. "I already have a plan in mind. Don't worry about it for now." The matter was over. Elder Su turned around and left. Qing Xian soon found a special place for seclusion in the palace. The entire secret chamber was made of void spirit iron stone and another strange ore, and it was carved with many formation runes to isolate all auras. Long Chen was quite satisfied with this secret room. He said to Qing Xian, "I'll cultivate in seclusion here. You take care of yourself outside." Although he said this, Long Chen still left a strand of his divine sense in Qing Xian's hands in case anything went wrong. Qing Xian agreed, but her eyes were already a bit misty. Once upon a time, when Long Chen was still in the ordinary martial realm, she was the girl guarding outside the door. She joined the Imperial Academy for Long Chen's sake. She wanted to stay by Long Chen's side peacefully like today. Long Chen's expression softened when he saw this. He reached out and stroked Qing Xian's smooth, smiling face. "If you don't want to stay outside, you can follow me into seclusion. Maybe I can spare a day or two to accompany you when the time comes." Qing Xian's face immediately turned red. How could she not understand Long Chen's meaning? Qing Xian should wait for young master outside. Long Chen shook his head and laughed. He prepared to enter the secret chamber. Qing Xian said in a low voice, "When young master finishes his seclusion, Qing Xian will wait on young master." Long Chen looked at Qing Xian's beautiful appearance and couldn't help but laugh. Qing Xian looked at the door of the secret chamber gradually closing. Her heart was filled with infinite happiness and satisfaction. Inside the secret chamber, Long Chen closed his eyes and stopped all distracting thoughts. When he opened his eyes again, they were as black as ink. All the brilliance in the secret chamber disappeared without a trace. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the dark space, there was only a dazzling brilliance in his body that kept flashing. Although the Chaos Dragon Bone had been integrated into his body, if he really wanted to use the divine power inside, he had to completely integrate it into his own. Otherwise, once he used the divine power, he was afraid that even he would die. The Divine Emperor's remnant soul said in a low voice, "The demonic star isn't the strongest divine power in the dragon bone I refined, but it's the most evil. You must be very careful when you integrate it. You have to choose the right time to use it. Otherwise, your Tao heart might collapse. When you integrate it, I will use this divine power shadow from when I was alive to participate." Long Chen took a deep breath and nodded. Even the Divine Emperor thought that this item was too evil. It must be terrifying. While he was thinking, the Chaos Golden Codex in his body started to circulate rapidly. At this moment, his flesh and blood gradually emitted a dazzling brilliance. Countless auspicious divine power even flowed between heaven and earth. He could only communicate with the inextinguishable Tao law. He had integrated many divine emperors' origins and had almost merged with the entire ancient sacred divine world. If not, the moment the Chaos Dragon Bone entered his body, he would be thousands of times more miserable than the Tao of Doom. Roar. A dragon's roar came from his body and rushed into his mind. In the pitch-black secret room, Long Chen could clearly see a black dragon spiraling out of his body. This black dragon's tail pierced through his back, and the dragon's head drilled into his mind. At this moment, countless images seemed to appear in his mind through the inextinguishable Tao law. The Divine Emperor's remnant soul also integrated into it at the critical moment. Long Chen slowly sat down cross-legged. His mind seemed to have transformed into a black dragon that soared through the inextinguishable Tao law. It traveled through time and arrived at the time when the ancient sacred divine world's master used to rule. The Divine Emperor's remnant soul spoke again. His voice was filled with vicissitudes and pride. He said disdainfully, "In the Devil Abyss Star Sea, I comprehended this technique for the first time. I used the demonic star 3 times in my life. Each time, I left behind countless legends and taboos in the chaotic Star Sea. In this battle, I only killed a star beast that lived for 300,000 years. This beast hid in the chaotic Star Sea and had reached the titled Divine Emperor realm. It swallowed an entire primal chaos divine race." Roar. It was Long Chen's first time seeing the ancient sacred divine world's master in action. He stood in the Devil Abyss in the demonic Star Sea, where demonic aura surged. Every aura he emitted seemed to contain the laws of the world. Every rhythm he moved affected countless inextinguishable Tao law. The world suppression cauldron floated beside him. It was as if billions of stars were being destroyed within it. Its terrifying might caused the starry sky to fall silent. Thousands of runes intersected with each other in the Realm Master's eyes. Then, he grabbed at the air, and all the stars in the Devil Abyss Star Sea fell into his palm. Chapter 1232. The Black Star in the Abyss Shattered. Evil energy gathered in the Sector Lord's eyes. A black dragon gathered all the energy in the star Devil Abyss and roared out. The black dragon seemed to have a life of its own as it devoured the entire star Devil Abyss. That so-called star beast was also a huge, pitch-black planet. Was this the so-called star beast? Long Chen's gaze seemed to have completely merged with the black dragon that was being born. The huge planet was filled with life in his eyes. Outside of it, there was an unprecedented amount of devil aura. Just one more step, and I can fight you to the death for the Sector Lord's position. The huge planet transformed into a soul and roared crazily. No matter how it roared, the ancient Saint Sector Lord's expression did not change. The Devil Star condensed and covered the entire universe. Then, the black light engulfed the star beast and suppressed it completely. Long Chen's heart trembled like never before. A star beast that had lived for 300,000 years was killed in one move. How terrifying was the ancient Saint Sector Lord's power when he was alive. With such terrifying strength, who would be able to withstand a single blow from him? How did he fall? Before Long Chen could calm down, the scene in front of him shattered again. Then, like a broken mirror, it started to piece back together. This is the second time I've used the Devil Star in battle. In this battle, I've killed a total of 30 million creatures. The rest of the God world will not dare to step into the ancient Saint Land. This time, Long Chen once again witnessed the terror of Mo Xing's divine ability. The black dragon rose into the sky like a star. Wherever the light landed, everyone's god power started to transform into devil aura uncontrollably. Their minds started to collapse. Tens of millions of people started to kill each other. The scene was like hell. At this moment, Long Chen finally understood why this sacred art was called the Devil Star. This sacred art was formed by the endless power of the Star Devil Abyss and the soul of the Star Beast. It was terrifying enough to destroy the heavens and earth. No wonder this technique was qualified to let the ancient Saint Sector Lord fuse into the Chaos Dragon Bone. The scene changed again. This time, the ancient Saint Sector Lord did not say anything. It was as if he was immersed in his memories. In this battle, the Devil Star divine art had 9 stars in the sky. However, in this battle, Long Chen did not see his opponent. He only saw a purple light. This purple light shattered the 9 demonic stars. Long Chen suddenly opened his eyes. His face was as pale as paper as he stared at the halberd he had taken out. He was sure that he was not mistaken. That purple light was exactly the same as the halberd that day. Within the ancient sacred divine world, there was still someone who could fight against the ancient saint world overlord. That person might very well be the person who killed the ancient saint world overlord. Upon seeing Long Chen waking up, the ancient saint world lord spoke solemnly, "You don't have to think too much about this matter. You should already understand the power of this Devil Star. If you use this divine art, although the power wouldn't be so terrifying, it would still be sufficient to destroy a primal chaos god race. But I must warn you, you must not use this technique unless you have no other choice." Long Chen nodded. He knew that the Realm Lord was referring to Yi Hailan's death. On that day Yi Hailan died. He used his immortal powers to form an ice coffin and swore that he would not enter the immortal sect until Yi Hailan was reborn. He seemed to be no different from an ordinary cultivator, but in reality, there was always devil will entrenched in his essence. Coincidentally, the Devil Star art was an extremely evil and devilish technique. If he wasn't careful, he might step into the Devil Dao once again. 10 days had passed since he entered seclusion. The Chaos Dragon Bone had completely fused with his bones. His cultivation had risen from the First Order God Emperor realm to the Second Order God Emperor realm. It was as if he had jumped an entire realm. After Long Chen left the secret chamber, Qing Xian leaned against the wall as if she hadn't slept for 10 days. When she saw Long Chen walk out, she heaved a sigh of relief. The worry on her face disappeared without a trace. "Young master, Elder Su said that he has an urgent matter to discuss with you. You must summon him immediately after you come out of seclusion." Long Chen nodded and waved his hand casually. The people from the Misfortune God's faction at the entrance immediately disappeared. In less than 100 breaths' time, Elder Su flew over. He seemed to be very anxious. "After you went into seclusion that day, what do you think the Divine Force God who betrayed the empty land heard from outside the Divine Kingdom? When the Heavenly Light God's subordinates entered this place, he took advantage of the chaos to escape. However, before he could get far, he sensed the heavenly light god's aura. He immediately hid himself. According to him, another chaos dragon bone will appear in the misfortune god's bloodline. Just as he finished speaking, Long Chen's pupils shrank. Within the primal chaos domain, the realm master's remnant soul had sensed the aura of two chaos dragon bones. He didn't expect both of them to be related to the misfortune god's bloodline. Elder Su seemed to have seen through Long Chen's doubts. The reason the chaos dragon bone appeared in the misfortune god's bloodline isn't because they were lucky. Instead, it's because their bloodline occupies a wonderful place. The core of the primal chaos domain runs through the entire misfortune god's bloodline. The previous chaos dragon bone also appeared in this place, and was obtained by the misfortune god's bloodline. Long Chen was enlightened. The realm master had said that the chaos dragon bone would only appear in a place filled with primal chaos energy. Most of them must be in the primal chaos domain. It was reasonable that these two pieces of chaos dragon bone would be attracted by the core of the primal chaos domain. The so-called core of the primal chaos domain was the center of the formation that sealed the primal chaos domain. This formation was left behind by the realm master himself. For countless years, no one had managed to break it. Of course, if they knew that Long Chen was the one who strengthened the seal in the central oblast, they would probably die from anger. Long Chen pondered for a moment, but he hesitated. The fact that the Chaos Dragon Bone allowed the misfortune god to establish the heavenly harmony divine country was enough to let the 9 primal chaos divine races know how powerful it was. Now that the misfortune god's bloodline's Chaos Dragon Bone appeared, the 9 primal chaos divine races would definitely participate. Even though his cultivation had increased, the second-order God Emperor realm was still insufficient to deal with the 9 primal chaos divine races experts. Elder Su seemed to be more anxious than Long Chen. He hurriedly said, "Don't hesitate anymore. We have already selected 34th Order God Emperors and above to go with you. I have another piece of news to tell you. The core of the primal chaos domain also contains the Realm Master's inheritance." And Long Chen raised his eyebrows. There were other inheritances? Other than the Chaos Dragon Bone, what else could be considered as the Realm Master's inheritance? Elder Su's voice deepened as he went on. The 9 primal chaos divine races have been trying to break the seal and descend to the mainland where the human race lives. That's why they have used endless strength. Chapter 1233. After Elder Su's explanation, Long Chen finally received an answer from the Emperor Lord's remnant soul. The so-called condensation of the core should be the energy he left behind when he set up the seal. This energy was gradually being squeezed out along with the collapse of the inextinguishable Tao law and the activation of the 9 chaos divine tribes. If this energy didn't exist, no matter how terrifying the seal was, it wouldn't be able to seal so many divine emperors from the 9 chaos divine tribes. Long Chen finally nodded in agreement and asked Elder Su to make the necessary arrangements. The energy I used to suppress the 9 chaos divine tribes was actually forced out of the seal. No wonder they were able to establish contact with the central region when the inextinguishable Tao law began to collapse. This is a rare opportunity for you. This energy is the purest source of energy I had when I was alive. Now that you've fused with my source, you can use it for yourself. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul seemed to be very concerned about this news. The primal chaos realm was so vast and there were so many divine emperors. One could imagine how much energy was used to suppress this place. Even if only 20 or 30% of it was left, it would be a big deal to him. Of course, no one knew how much energy had been forced out of the seal. The next morning, Elder Su had already arrived outside the palace with 30 people. The only thing they didn't understand was that the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline had brought his grandson with him. Long Chen and Qing Xian quickly walked out of the palace. After a brief discussion, they prepared to leave the heavenly harmony divine nation. Before they left, Long Chen handed a jade slip to Lan Haixin and asked her to use it to completely conceal the heavenly harmony divine nation. This jade slip wasn't a magical item. It was the imprint of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul. With this imprint, it was enough to prevent others from investigating this place. As long as the spatial coordinates changed slightly, it would be enough to conceal them. Even the heavenly light god's bloodline wouldn't believe that they would remain here. After everyone left, along the way, Elder Su told everyone about the core of the misfortune god's bloodline. He had once participated in the fight for the Chaos Dragon Bone, so he was quite familiar with the situation. The core of the primal chaos realm was the place where the seals intersected. Any energy that exceeded the limit would be detected and would be sealed and killed. Even a ninth-order god emperor wouldn't be able to withstand the seal's killing power. If not for this, countless years had passed, and the 9 chaotic divine clans would not weaken the seal just by leaking the power left behind by the Emperor Master. This force limited the number of people who could enter the hub. Moreover, the core was located in the left wing of the heavenly god of misfortune's clanland. Once this power appeared, the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline would most likely face unprecedented misfortune. Due to the appearance of the Chaos Dragon Bone, this core area was no longer restricted by the misfortune god's bloodline. All forces were allowed to participate in the contest for the primal Chaos Dragon Bone. Of course, even so, the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline was still the most likely to obtain the Chaos Dragon Bone. The hub had always belonged to the misfortune god's bloodline. This race was far more knowledgeable about the powers and dangers within than any other race. There's another piece of news. This piece of news hasn't been confirmed, but I think it's extremely likely. Elder Su took a deep breath, and his expression became slightly serious. Long Chen frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "You should be talking about the Tao of Adversity, right? He has already returned to the misfortune heavenly god clan." Elder Su nodded. That was indeed the case. After the Tao of Adversity had left this place, he had tried to track down his whereabouts. In the end, he discovered that his route led him to the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline. If the Tao of Adversity had truly returned to the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline, then the danger of this trip would definitely increase greatly. Since things have come to this point, we can only counter soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. The current situation already gives us a great advantage. If the Chaos Dragon Bone isn't in the hub, I'm afraid we won't even have the chance to enter and participate in the contest, Long Chen continued. Everyone nodded in agreement. However, many people's gazes would occasionally fall on the youth from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline. They truly couldn't understand why they had to bring this burden along. Senior Zhu Zijua, this trip is truly dangerous. Are you sure you want to bring your grandson along? A member of the heavenly void god's bloodline behind Elder Su couldn't help but ask. Zhu Zijua snorted coldly and rolled his eyes at this person. Upon seeing that Long Chen was also staring at him curiously, he replied, "You're mistaken. It's not that I want to bring him along. It's that he insists on following you. If my grandson didn't insist on going to the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline, why would I participate in this matter?" Upon hearing this, Long Chen became slightly puzzled. He stared at the youth and said, "Zhuzin? That's your name, right? Why do you want to follow us to the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline?" Although the youth was silent, his words were extremely experienced. There wasn't the slightest hint of childishness in them. "I'm here to repay a debt of gratitude. You gave me the chaotic mountain soul. I've never casually taken other people's things. Since I've accepted your gift, I have to help you." Long Chen couldn't help but take a few more glances at this youth. Zhu Zin's cultivation was only at the God King stage. However, he was willing to come with them. Just his courage and temperament alone were definitely not something an ordinary person could compare to. The others in the surroundings couldn't help but mock him without any ill intentions. However, Zhu Ziyin wasn't afraid at all. In the end, he merely snorted coldly and said, "If you need me to save your lives, you won't be able to laugh anymore." Ha 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 ha. Everyone laughed even more heartily. The route they chose was extremely secretive. There were even teleportation spell formations that were hidden deep within the mountains and the depths of the sea. These were the places that the traders of the various races needed to travel to the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. Now, however, they came in handy. According to Elder Su, the only thing they needed to do was to find a way to enter the core region. Once they entered the core region, they would be safe. As for how to leave, they had already made preparations. This was also the reason why 10 of them were from the Heavenly Void God's bloodline. In the Misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline, the various chaotic divine tribes had already gathered. Only the Heavenly Light Goddess bloodline had yet to arrive. The Heavenly Light Goddess bloodline is second to none among the 9 great chaotic divine tribes. Why haven't they arrived yet? A member of the Divine Power God's bloodline couldn't help but exclaim. I've received news that the Heavenly Light Goddess bloodline seems to have decided to give up on the fight for the chaotic dragon bone. As for why, I'm not sure, a black-robed woman from the Heavenly Death Goddess bloodline said indifferently. Chapter 1234. Within the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline. The 8 chaotic divine tribes had already gathered. Just as Elder Su had said, each force had only brought a few dozen people. The Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline repeatedly warned the other forces before leading them to the entrance of the core land. The core land was located in a vast mountain range. Everyone was familiar with this place. Every once in a while, the 9 chaotic divine tribes would come here to provide a portion of their strength to break the seal. The mountain ranges were extremely peculiar, and there seemed to be countless crisscrossing fishnet-like threads on them. These threads crisscrossed with one another before transforming into tens of thousands of threads that disappeared into the void. The Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline was the first to activate the spell formation. The Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline was the first to arrive. Instantly, a spatial gate gradually tore open in the sky. The gate seemed to be filled with vast and mighty chaotic power. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that there were an astonishing number of peculiar threads within. Everyone took a deep breath before entering the gate in a single file. Buzz. Just as the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline disappeared into the gate, a streak of black light suddenly appeared in the distance, causing everyone's expression to change. The Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline roared, "Who dares to sneak into the core land?" As he roared, he waved his hand in an attempt to close the spell formation again. However, he discovered that the streak of black light had already pierced through the gate. This is the Heavenly Void God's Void Divine Travel Technique. The Heavenly Void God's bloodline's members were all stunned, and their leader involuntarily cried out. The Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline also stopped the grayish-white divine light in their hands. However, their expressions were grim. No matter who this group of people was, at this moment, they had already charged into the core land. This kind of situation really caught them off guard. After all, the core land had already become a shared territory of the 9 chaotic divine tribes. Moreover, the 9 chaotic divine tribes had already received news of the appearance of the chaotic dragon bone. Only the Heavenly Light God's bloodline hadn't come. However, what was going on with the Heavenly Void God's bloodline? The various forces that had yet to enter the core land all turned their gazes toward the Heavenly Void God's bloodline. After a brief moment of shock, the Heavenly Void God's bloodline members all shook their heads in resignation. Their leader explained, "Heavenly Void God's bloodline members definitely didn't come here, and we definitely won't violate the agreement between the chaotic divine tribes. Don't waste time here. Once we enter, we'll know what's going on with that group of people." After a round of discussion, the various forces parted on bad terms and rushed into the entrance of the hub. After everyone left, atop the mountain, a gray-robed member of the Empyrean god of misfortune's lineage stood there in midair. His eyes were fixed on the door. This person was the Tao of Calamity. When the members of the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline saw that misfortune Tao had arrived, they all bowed. The leader even said in a deep voice, "The people sent by our clan have already entered, but there's a group of people who came uninvited." Adeo sneered and replied, "That group of people are from the heavenly harmony divine nation. The person leading them must be that human called Long Chen. He still has another chaos dragon bone in his hands. My preparations at the core lands were for him to come. The primal chaos dragon bone can only belong to me." When everyone saw Adept Dao's crazy and burning gaze, they didn't dare say anything and just nodded in agreement. Although Adept Dao had once betrayed the gods and established the heavenly harmony divine nation, he was immediately received by the misfortune heavenly god's patriarch and many other higher-ups upon his return. On that day, Adept Dao killed close to 1,000 humans in front of everyone to prove that he wasn't a god betrayer. After a series of tests, he actually obtained an unprecedented status upon his return to the Adept Heavenly God tribe. Many people even regarded him as the successor to the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline. Inside the core, this place seemed to have formed a space of its own. Everything in this space seemed to have been formed by Tao law thread. The 9 stone palaces were the most densely intertwined with the threads. As the stone palaces transformed between illusion and reality, everyone could even see that there was a turbulent river at the center of the 9 stone palaces. This river exuded a strange and unfathomable power. Elsewhere, 8 chaotic god tribe members stood in 8 different directions, and they all distanced themselves from each other. Their gazes all fell on a single spot. Long Chen, Elder Su, and more than 30 other people were standing there. Elder Su and Long Chen wore calm expressions. On the other hand, the people behind them were all tense, and their eyes were filled with unease. It was as if they were facing a powerful enemy. The leader of the heavenly void god's bloodline spoke first. "It's you people. You humans are even more despicable than the god betrayers. How dare you intrude into the core? Could it be that you also want to get your hands on the chaotic dragon bone? How laughable. You're just a bunch of people who have come to die. Wishful thinking. The human bloodline is lowly, and the achievements they can achieve in their lifetime are countless times simpler than those of us chaotic god tribe. I don't know what these god betrayers are thinking. They're actually willing to ally with us." The 8 chaotic god tribe members' initial shock toward Long Chen and the others' arrival turned into disdain. In their eyes, a bunch of worthless human traitors and traitors were not even worth mentioning. Before Long Chen could say anything, Elder Su stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "Since we've already arrived at the core, we're naturally here for the chaotic dragon bone. As for whether or not we can obtain it, that's not up to you. Of course, you can also attack us at any time. We also want to see how different you are from us." Elder Su's words infuriated the 8 chaotic god tribe members. It was as if they had been provoked like never before. They despised the human race from the bottom of their hearts, and they felt even more humiliated by the god betrayers. However, they didn't attack. They clearly knew that Elder Su had participated in the previous battle for the chaotic dragon bone, and they knew that all power in the core had to be within the rules. Otherwise, once they triggered the sealing power of the chaotic realm, the consequences would be unimaginable. In reality, many people even treated Elder Su as the leader of the group. After all, they couldn't be bothered to look at a human like Long Chen. Rumble. As they conversed, the threads of Tao laws within their line of sight started to tremble at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the distance, thunderous booms could be heard from the 9 stone palaces formed by intersecting Tao laws. Seeing this, the 8 chaotic god tribe members actually charged toward the 9 stone palaces in a frenzy. They couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Long Chen and the others. Elder Su and Long Chen glanced at each other and hurriedly said, "This is the time when the sealing sound is at its weakest. The 9 stone palaces will solidify at this time, and the danger will be minimized." Chapter 12:35. The countless Tao law threads on the stone palaces were so dense that they were almost like flat walls. When everyone stood on the stone palaces, they were no different from the outside world. However, that was not all. The most frightening thing was that everyone could feel an extremely terrifying sealing power at this moment. This sealing power contained an extremely unstable suppressive feeling, and there was even a dense killing intent within. Many people behind Elders Su and Long Chen began to try to mobilize the chaos divine power in their bodies. However, they realized that the divine power was instantly shattered and disappeared. Elder Su explained in a deep voice, "This is the place with the densest seals in the entire chaos domain. The 9 stone palaces are actually where all the seals are intertwined. You can't use the chaos energy in this place at all. Only the Chaos Divine Tribe's innate ability can be used. Remember, you can't release overly powerful attacks unless you have no other choice. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable if you shake the sealing power." Everyone nodded repeatedly. Long Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows as he looked at the 9 stone palaces before him. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His palm moved slightly, which instantly attracted the attention of Elders Su and the others. Everyone was stunned on the spot. There was a dense chaos energy in Long Chen's palm. Not only did the chaos energy not dissipate, but it became even denser. Elder Su was stunned as he muttered, "How can this be? How can you use the chaos energy in the core area? The sealing power here has almost reached its peak. Why aren't you affected by the sealing power?" Long Chen smiled without saying anything. He withdrew the chaos energy and then signaled to everyone with his eyes. "Our goal today is the Imperial Lord's remnant power and the Chaos Dragon Bone here. The Chaos Dragon Bone won't appear in a short period of time. Let's go for the Imperial Lord's remnant power first." Elder Su frowned slightly when he heard that. He said in a deep voice, "The Imperial Lord's remnant power exists outside every stone palace, and there are strange seal beasts everywhere. It's not easy to obtain them. If the Chaos Dragon Bone appears along the Sealing River during this period of time, we'll be very passive." Everyone nodded and felt that Elder Su's words made sense. Although the Imperial Lord's remnant power was extremely precious, it was much more troublesome than the Chaos Divine Bone. After all, once they made a move here, they would have to worry about the sealing power at all times. As long as no one obtained the Chaos Divine Bone, there would be no danger. Once it appeared in the sealed river in the middle of the 9 stone palaces, the losses would outweigh the gains if it was seized first. Long Chen shook his head. "Just listen to me. The Chaos Dragon Bone won't appear anytime soon. Moreover, if we want to snatch the Chaos Dragon Bone from the 8 chaotic divine clans, the remaining power of the Monarch Lord will be of great use." Seeing Long Chen's insistence, everyone nodded in agreement. Elder Su led Long Chen and the others to a corner of the stone palace. Although the sealing power here was strong, there didn't seem to be any special danger. Elder Su also explained to everyone why the 9 stone palaces appeared here. As it turned out, the 9 stone palaces did not exist here in the first place. Instead, they had changed because they were obtained by the Tao of Adversity when the Chaos Dragon Bone appeared last time. When Long Chen heard this, he also had a whole new level of respect for Ideo. It could be said that this person was extremely talented in certain aspects. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to comprehend the mysteries within the Chaos Dragon Bone so quickly. After he obtained the Chaos Dragon Bone, at the request of the Heavenly God of Misfortune, he immediately tried to destroy the seal of the Chaos Domain. The seal did not weaken. Instead, 9 stone palaces appeared out of thin air and almost killed the 9 chaotic divine clans. After the various chaotic divine clans speculated that the 9 stone palaces were another form of rejection of the Chaos Dragon Bone's power by the sealing power. Not only did the 9 stone palaces not weaken the sealing power at the core of the Chaos Domain, but they also completely strengthened the core of the Chaos Domain. According to Elder Su, the truly terrifying thing was the sealed river in the middle of the 9 stone palaces. The river looked like water, but it was actually formed by the sealing power that was filled with murderous intent. According to the various chaotic divine clans, these sealing branches almost covered the entire Chaos Domain. Because of this, the Chaos Dragon Bone would definitely appear in this sealed river. While everyone was discussing, they soon arrived at the place Elder Su had mentioned. They all stopped and stared at the corner of the stone palace with bewilderment. There were a total of 4 strange beasts there. These strange beasts were completely different from origin beasts. Every single one of them had strange appearances. Some of them were headless, and their bodies were made of limbs. Some of them were just a mass of black fog with a giant mouth. There were even 2 of them that were made of intertwined sealing threads. Their appearances were constantly changing, and they looked like a mass of flowing water that was being squeezed by an invisible force. Many people subconsciously became vigilant, and they asked Elder Su about the origin and battle strength of these seal beasts. Elder Su shook his head and replied, "No one knows what these seal beasts are. However, once the Emperor Lord's remnant power is expelled from the seal, these creatures will be born. These creatures' battle strength is unfathomable. Some of them have the power to seal, and some of them have the strength to kill 6th Order God Emperors. They are extremely strange." Long Chen shook his head and explained to everyone, to be more precise, these seal beasts are not real creatures. They are part of the Chaos Domain's seal. This formation was built by the Realm Master. When the Realm Master's power is expelled, the formation will react. To a certain extent, they can be considered as the Realm Master's will. The Realm Master's will? Everyone was confused, but they felt that it made sense. After all, these creatures appeared at the same time as the Realm Master's remnant power, and they never left this place. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Long Chen directly walked towards these seal beasts. As the seal beasts roared, their bodies emitted a dazzling sealing light. The surrounding people immediately acted as if they were facing a great enemy. They were ready to help Long Chen at any time. However, Long Chen waved his hand and said indifferently, "Just don't come close. These seal beasts are no threat to me." While everyone was still in shock, a scene that made them dumbfounded appeared. The moment Long Chen got close to a seal beast, he actually opened his mouth and swallowed it into his stomach. Several seal beasts disappeared without a trace in just a few breaths. How is this possible? At this moment, even Elder Su was staring at Long Chen in shock. He never thought that Long Chen would be able to obtain the pearl condensed from the Realm Master's remnant power so easily. Chapter 1236. In just a few breaths, Long Chen completely devoured the seal beast. This action caused everyone to break out in cold sweat. Droplets of water condensed from the remaining power of a realm lord were captured by Long Chen. Long Chen sensed it and could not help but raise his eyebrows. This item indeed contained a large amount of Emperor Lord's power. If this power was obtained by an outsider, once activated, death would be the only outcome. Long Chen was the complete opposite. The terrifying power condensed in these water droplets came from the same source as him. Could be said to be the most powerful spirit pill. The water droplets intersected in Long Chen's hand and did not dissipate. Long Chen saw that everyone was still in a daze and asked Elder Su, "Does this item exist in all 9 stone palaces?" Elder Su finally reacted and nodded. Although the other 8 stone palaces each have a primal chaos god tribe, it is not impossible to take it now. The various primal chaos god tribes cannot fuse with this item, and in this core area, they do not dare to truly attack us. After a brief discussion, Elder Su, Long Chen, and the others charged straight towards the stone palace on the left. Inside the stone palace were the people of the Divine Strength Heavenly God tribe. Not long after Long Chen and the others entered the stone palace, they immediately sensed something and the leader's face gradually darkened. The people of the Divine Strength Heavenly God tribe quickly blocked Long Chen and the others. The leader of the group said coldly, "If you traitors and despicable humans want to live, you'd better know your place." The various primal chaos god tribes have a tacit understanding. You entering this stone palace is equivalent to provoking the Divine Strength Heavenly God tribe. Rumble. As he spoke, the people of the Divine Strength Heavenly God tribe emitted a blinding golden light and waves of terrifying blood energy swept out like a scorching sun. Although they could not use primal chaos energy here, the talents of the 9 primal chaos god tribes were not restricted at all. In a certain aspect, the Divine Strength Heavenly God tribe could be considered to be blessed by the heavens. I heard that the traitors and humans coexist harmoniously in the Heavenly Harmony God Nation? The leader sneered, "That's simple. Today I'll only kill 3 humans. After that, I won't attack again." The meaning behind his words could not be more obvious. On one hand, he wanted to give Long Chen and the others a way out so that they would not attack the seal crazily. On the other hand, he wanted to vent the anger in his heart. Elder Su and the others immediately acted as if they were facing a great enemy. Due to the power of the seal, the various forces were wary of each other and would not act rashly. But if they really didn't have a way out, who would be willing to destroy the array formation indiscriminately? This was also the reason why the various forces had a tacit understanding. Obtaining the primal chaos dragon bone could only depend on one's own ability. However, it was rare for the various forces to fight to the death. The battle between the 2 forces was on the verge of breaking out, but Long Chen suddenly stood out from the crowd. His eyes landed on the leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God lineage, and he said indifferently, "You want to kill 3 humans, I also want to kill 3 Divine Force Heavenly Gods, The Divine Force Heavenly God lineage's eyes instantly fell on Long Chen. Then, he couldn't help but laugh loudly and he said playfully, "You mean to say that your group of despicable humans wants to fight against my race? You want to find 3 people to fight against my race?" When they discovered that Long Chen's cultivation was merely at the second-order God-Emperor realm, their expressions became even more disdainful. The leader of the group directly said to Elder Su, "Can this despicable human represent you? Since he dares to spout such arrogant words, each of us will send 3 people to compete with him. Regardless of whether these 3 people live or die, the rest of us are not allowed to cause trouble, and we are not allowed to attack the seal." The Divine Force Heavenly God lineage's members subconsciously ignored Long Chen. In their eyes, Elder Su was the leader of this group. Not only that, their disdain for the human race was deeply ingrained in their hearts. Even though the God betrayers had come together with the human race, they felt that only Elder Su and the rest of the God race's members were qualified to talk to them as equals. Elder Su hesitated, and he secretly sent a voice transmission to Long Chen. "The Divine Force Heavenly God lineage doesn't cultivate divine arts, and they are simply war machines. If we fight them one-on-one, they won't have the slightest advantage." Long Chen shook his head and directly told Elder Su his decision. Elder Su didn't say anything else. Seeing that Elder Su had agreed, the Divine Force Heavenly God sneered, "Today, I want to see how despicable humans like you can compete with my Divine Force Heavenly God lineage." Just as the Divine Force Heavenly God finished speaking, Long Chen took the lead and walked out. Elder Su and the others wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Although they knew that Long Chen was the World Lord's inheritor, they couldn't use the Chaos Dragon Bone here. Otherwise, who knew if another 9 stone palaces would appear? If he couldn't use the Chaos Dragon Bone, Long Chen's cultivation was only at the first level of the second-order God-Emperor realm. With this kind of battle prowess, the other side could easily send anyone to kill him. The Divine Force Heavenly God lineage's members were stunned for a moment, then all of them swayed back and forth in laughter. The leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God lineage looked around and said, "I really can't find a single second-order God Emperor realm expert among the people I brought with me this time. Quickly scram, or at least send a fourth-order God Emperor realm expert to replace you. Not only are the humans' bloodlines despicable, but their brains are also not very good. Are they trying to sacrifice themselves?" The Heavenly Harmony sect disciples behind Elder Su were enraged. In their eyes, Long Chen was a true Heavenly Harmony sect disciple. Naturally, they were furious that Long Chen was humiliated like this. One of the humans wanted to step forward and replace Long Chen. Long Chen waved his hand and looked at the leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God lineage. He said indifferently, "Fourth Order God Emperor realm is also fine, any one of you can come up." The Divine Force Heavenly God lineage's laughter stopped abruptly. Their expressions gradually turned gloomy and cold. Long Chen, a mere second-order God Emperor realm expert, wanted to challenge them, a fourth-order God Emperor realm expert? Just this tone alone was a great insult to them. "You go up and let him see the might of our Divine Force Heavenly God lineage. Despicable humans should have a heart of reverence for our noble bloodline." The leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God lineage pointed at a person and signaled for him to go up and fight. This person walked up to Long Chen with a lack of interest and said casually, "Since you want to die for your companions, I can only fulfill your wish. A despicable second-order God Emperor realm human is really not interesting, ah." As this person spoke, he casually attacked. Golden light flashed on his bronze body that was covered in scales, and the sharp bones on his limbs that were like weapons emitted a cold light. Just like what Elder Su had said, the Divine Force Heavenly God lineage had a unique advantage because of their unique talent. Compared to the other Chaos Divine Forces, the Divine Force Heavenly God lineage suffered less interference. Chapter 12:37. The Divine Force Heavenly God's cultivation had already reached the third level of the fourth-order God Emperor realm. He was 2 whole levels higher than Long Chen, and 2 whole levels higher. In everyone's eyes, this was an insurmountable gap. The Divine Force Heavenly God only wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. In his opinion, he had no desire to fight Long Chen. Rumble. Even though the Divine Force Heavenly God's bloodline was wary of the seal's power, he had tried his best to restrain his God Force. Even so, he was still able to attract a lot of golden light, and the space around him rumbled like thunder. His attack was not flashy at all, and it was simply aimed at Long Chen. This simple punch caused the several fourth-order God Emperors behind Long Chen to take 2 steps back. Everyone's expression changed. Elder Su also panicked a little. If Long Chen was really killed in an instant, they would really have no hope at all. He really couldn't figure out why Long Chen would make such a reckless decision. While he was lost in thought, Elder Su had already signaled Zhu Zizhua from the destruction race with his eyes. Both of them instantly understood each other's intentions. They were already prepared to save Long Chen at any time. Rumble. Another thunderous rumble sounded. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Long Chen actually made a move and exchanged a punch with the Divine Force Heavenly God. Terrifying shockwaves spread out, sweeping over 10,000 li, and even the stone palace trembled. Both of them took a step back. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Even the Divine Force Heavenly God's bloodline's members froze. The Divine Force Heavenly God's bloodline prided themselves on their own strength. Their bodies were born with the ability to fight against spiritual artifacts, and their bodies could absorb chaos energy at any time. Among the 9 Chaos Divine tribes in the Chaos domain, no one dared to fight in close combat with this Divine Force Heavenly God. They didn't dare to believe their eyes. A human, a despicable human, actually fought a divine force, heavenly God, to a draw with his physical strength. Moreover, there was a difference of 22 levels between the two of them, which was more than 2 whole stages. The divine force God who fought Long Chen stared at Long Chen in shock. He stared at his own fist in confusion and shock. He had directly exchanged blows with Long Chen, so he had the most direct experience of Long Chen's strength. If not for the fact that Long Chen was standing right in front of him right now, he would have thought that Long Chen was a member of the same clan. Could it be that you are a hybrid of the divine power, heavenly God lineage, and the human race? Traitors are truly the greatest disgrace to our race. The man's face gradually turned from calm to angry. The faces of those from the divine strength heavenly God lineage turned ashen when they heard this. They were certain that this was the case. No matter what, they would not believe that the human race could compare with the physical talent they were so proud of. Elder Su and the others also relaxed slightly. They knew very well that Long Chen was definitely not a descendant of the chaotic God tribe and the human tribe. He was a human through and through. Elder Su and Zhu Zizhua could not help but smile bitterly. It seemed that they had thought too much. Long Chen was not a reckless person. Since he had made such a move, he must have made a decision long ago. Long Chen only frowned slightly at the divine strength heavenly God lineage's word. He did not intend to explain and only said indifferently, "The divine strength heavenly God lineage is only SOSO. Just use whatever means you have." When the divine strength heavenly God lineage's person heard this, his entire face glowed with golden light. It was as if he had been humiliated like never before and was furious. His eyes seemed to be burning with golden flames as he said coldly, "If you were just an ordinary human, dying in one move would not be painful. But now you can't blame me." As soon as he finished speaking, this person's body trembled and all the golden divine light suddenly became violent. The space around him was filled with golden divine light. These divine light instantly turned back and condensed on his body. The people of the divine strength heavenly God lineage were originally extremely tall and sturdy. Now their appearance changed even more. This person was like a giant more than 10 meters tall. The golden scales on his body seemed to have condensed into a divine armor. Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This armor was probably strong enough to fight against divine weapons. The feeling of power it exuded was terrifying. The divine strength heavenly God lineage behind Elder Su revealed serious and worried expressions. They hurriedly said, "This is the divine light flame armor. Not only does it increase his defense to the extreme, it also increases his attack to the extreme. The blade-like bone weapons on his limbs cannot be underestimated. They are enough to cut through any defense of the same level." When Long Chen heard this, his expression also became serious. He cultivated the Tao Sense origin technique. His physical strength and divine soul were fused together. As his cultivation increased, his physical body was also strengthened to the extreme. Not only that, his physical body was fused with the Emperor Lord's remnant body. It was enough to communicate with the ancient sacred divine world. If not for this, he would not have the confidence to fight against the divine strength heavenly God lineage. "I'll send you to your death now, you bastard." The people of the divine strength heavenly God lineage seemed to believe that Long Chen was the descendant of the human race and the divine strength heavenly God lineage. It was as if Long Chen's existence was the greatest disgrace to their noble bloodline. Whoosh! Although the body of the divine strength heavenly God lineage was huge and heavy, his speed was also frighteningly fast. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already behind Long Chen. Long Chen also roared. Endless divine light surged out of his body. Numerous illusory dragon shadows materialized behind him. Bang! 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 The two of them actually started to fight again. Endless storms and waves of air rose and fell. The entire stone palace trembled under everyone's feet. When the two sides saw this, they were all very serious. They stared at the battle between the two of them. It seemed to tug at everyone's heartstrings. At the same time, the other stone palaces also felt the change in this place. They all stood at the top of the stone palace and looked into the distance. Under the interweaving of the ceiling power and the stone palace's obstruction, they were so far away, but they could not see clearly what was happening. They could only vaguely see the divine strength heavenly god lineage fighting with another person. What's going on? Why did the divine strength heavenly god lineage start fighting now? Who is that illusory figure? This person seems to be fighting with the divine strength heavenly god lineage. He is also extremely powerful. They all started to guess what had happened to the divine strength heavenly god lineage. Why would there be such terrifying fluctuations? Under normal circumstances, everyone in this core area would avoid fighting. Battles like this were very rare. After all, the sealing power of the Realm Lord was an existence that everyone feared. Boom, boom, boom. A series of crisp sounds rang out from the stone palace where the divine strength heavenly god lineage was. Under everyone's gaze, the divine strength heavenly god lineage that was fighting with Long Chun fell from the sky. However, the golden armor burned in the air and shattered into powder. Chapter 1238. In the stone palace where the divine force heavenly god bloodline was located, a wave of golden energy rippled outwards, attracting the attention of the other Chaos Divine Race experts. Inside the stone palace, the auras of the divine force heavenly god bloodline surged as they stared at the scene in front of them with killing intent. The second-level 4th Order God Emperor Realm Cultivator, who had fought with Long Chen, was killed by Long Chen on the spot. Long Chen stared at the members of the Divine Strength Celestial God Clan and said in a deep voice, "Although the Primal Chaos God Clan has a unique advantage in cultivation, the human race is definitely not as despicable as you think." As he spoke, the Divine Force Heavenly God Bloodline did not believe Long Chen's words at all. In their eyes, Long Chen was definitely a descendant of the Divine Force Heavenly God Bloodline and the human race, and he had even undergone some kind of mutation. After all, this kind of thing was not rare. The 9 Chaos Divine Races all had a small number of descendants of the human race and the Chaos Divine Race with terrifying innate talent. Of course, most of these people were killed by the Chaos Divine Race the moment they were born. The leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God Bloodline stared at Long Chen and took a deep breath. He said coldly, "Let your second person go up." The leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God Bloodline's words were filled with killing intent. Obviously, he wanted to defend his dignity by killing the next 2 humans. The few humans behind Long Chen wanted to step forward. Their cultivation was not bad, and a few of them were descendants of the human race and the Chaos Divine Race. These people had just stepped forward when they were stopped by Long Chen. Long Chen stared at the Divine Force Heavenly God Bloodline and said indifferently, "I'll go up for the next 2 battles." Before Old Su and the others could say anything, Long Chen signaled them with his eyes. With the previous experience, the 2 of them felt more at ease. When the leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God Bloodline heard Long Chen's words, he was completely enraged. He was too lazy to explain anything to him. "Someone go up and kill him for me." A person from the Divine Power Heavenly God lineage stood out. There wasn't the slightest trace of fear in his eyes. This person was actually a 5th Order Godly Emperor. He stared at Long Chen and said, "You really look like a 2nd Order Godly Emperor, but you managed to kill a 4th Order Godly Emperor from my clan. You're quite capable." The difference between a 4th Order God Emperor and a 5th Order God Emperor was only 1 order, and it didn't sound too big. In reality, he had checked a total of 9 minor realms. Moreover, Long Chen's cultivation was only at the 2nd Order God Emperor realm. The gap between them was like a huge chasm. Long Chen took a deep look at the man. He had a plan in mind. If they were in the outside world, a fifth-order God Emperor realm cultivator could definitely pose a threat to his life. However, it was a different story here. Within the entire hub, all of the Chaos God tribe members could only rely on their talents to attack. They could not use their Chaos divine power at all. Long Chen, on the other hand, was not affected at all. He could still use the primal Chaos divine power in his body as he wished. According to the Emperor Lord, this was because Long Chen had obtained everything from the ancient holy divine world. Moreover, he had the Chaos Dragon Bone with him. These things were born with the World Lord, and the seal here was also left behind by the World Lord. To be more precise, the sealing power of the core had acknowledged his existence and even treated him as a part of the formation. Long Chen was currently a second-order godly emperor. If he were in the outside world, defeating an early fourth-order godly emperor would be his limit, let alone a fifth-order godly emperor. The primal Chaos divine power was like a sea of energy for every Chaos God tribe member. At this moment, the Chaos God tribe member was like a well-equipped soldier who had been stripped of all his equipment. He could only fight with his bare hands and feet. Under such circumstances, Long Chen's strength did not weaken. Instead, it seemed to be growing stronger. The Chaos God tribe members could use their talents, but Long Chen could use the Chaos divine power without restraint. This was the reason why he was confident in defeating a fifth-order godly emperor. However, he could not expose this matter completely. Even though they were in the hub, it was inevitable that there would be a conflict when it came to obtaining the Chaos Dragon Bone. The Chaos divine power was one of his trump cards. In the midst of his thoughts, the fifth-order godly emperor Heavenly God was already charging towards him. The god force around this person's limbs had already reached the peak, and it was several times stronger than a fourth-order godly emperor. This person's face was filled with killing intent, and his god force condensed into a battle armor at an extremely fast speed. Rumble, rumble, rumble. This person's afterimages rushed towards Long Chen in a frenzy. Countless golden afterimages blotted out the sky, and every attack contained an endless amount of god force. The aura of the Heavenly God tribe was terrifying to the extreme. The divine force Heavenly God tribe member's face changed in shock. He was afraid that this person's attack would trigger the seal's power. The divine force Heavenly God tribe member's lips curled into a smile, and he said indifferently, "Don't worry, his control over his god force is just right. He won't trigger the seal's power." Long Chen was instantly engulfed by the golden afterimages, and the entire stone palace shook as if there was an earthquake. The Tao laws of the seal trembled continuously, but they didn't go berserk. Countless rays of golden light shone like the sea. Long Chen's silhouette soared into the sky. Surprisingly, he was facing the cultivator of the fifth layer of the godly emperor layer. Seeing this, the fifth-order godly emperor Heavenly God tribe member couldn't help but sneer. "Do you really think that you can fight me just because you can suppress a fourth-order godly emperor?" Divine Force Clear Sky Hammer. As the fifth-order godly emperor Heavenly God tribe member roared, his battle armor condensed in front of him, and he was about to clash with Long Chen. The battle armor condensed from this person's god force turned into 100 zhang long hammer, and it looked as if it was real. Their attacks collided in the blink of an eye. Long Chen actually had no intention of dodging. Instead, he executed a strange fist technique. Poochie! Under everyone's watchful eyes, copper-colored blood rained down from the sky, and the fifth-order godly emperor Heavenly God tribe member's body started to crumble inch by inch. The fifth-order godly emperor Heavenly God tribe member's eyes were filled with disbelief as he stared fixedly at Long Chen. It was as if he wanted to let out a final scream before he died. How do you have the chaos?" Bang! Long Chen didn't give him the chance to finish his sentence. His left fist punched out, and he killed the fifth-order godly emperor Heavenly God tribe member. At this moment, no one was thinking about the Fifth Order Godly Emperor Heavenly God tribe members' words. They were all staring fixedly at Long Chen. Their hearts had completely collapsed. What was going on? Long Chen was just a Second-Order Godly Emperor Realm cultivator. How could he defeat a Fourth-Order Godly Emperor Realm expert and kill a Fifth-Order Godly Emperor Realm expert with a single punch? What was going on? Even the leader of the Fifth Order Godly Emperor Heavenly God tribe couldn't come up with an explanation. Moreover, Long Chen was facing him, the Fifth Order Godly Emperor Heavenly God tribe. Throughout the 9 Chaos God tribes, there had never been such a genius. Chapter 1239. Sixth Order God Emperor Realm? Those from the Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline nearly choked when they heard Long Chen's words. They didn't know how to respond. If this matter were to spread out, their Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline's reputation would be ruined. A Second-Order God Emperor could kill a Fourth-Order God Emperor Realm Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline in a single strike. This was unheard of. The leader of the Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline was completely stunned. For a moment, he didn't know how to respond. He was starting to feel weak at this moment. Long Chen's calmness had truly stunned him. They had come here for the Chaos Dragon Bone. Initially, they had planned to kill 3 humans to establish their dominance. However, in a short period of time, they had already lost 2 people. If their Sixth Order God Emperor Realm expert was killed as well, what was the point of snatching the Chaos Dragon Bone? While the leader was hesitating, an older Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline expert walked up to him and said in a low voice, "Why lower yourself to their level? There's nothing else in this stone palace. It's just a place to rest. What's the point of letting them stay here?" The leader pondered for a long time. Then, he glared at Long Chen and said coldly, "I've lost this battle. If you want this stone palace, you can stay here. But I have one last question. Are you really a human?" Long Chen nodded his head and said, "Naturally." The Divine Power Heavenly God clan's living beings all looked at Long Chen solemnly. Their hearts were filled with shock. Long Chen, on the other hand, slowly led everyone into the stone palace. The Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline experts snorted coldly and walked out of the stone palace with ashen faces. It was obvious that they were planning to leave the stone palace to Long Chen and the others. Long Chen and the others walked straight towards the water droplet formed by the World Overlord's remnant spirit. They followed the same pattern. Long Chen easily obtained the water droplet. He opened his mouth and swallowed the seal beasts one after another. Inside the various stone palaces, the other 7 primal chaos heavenly gods seemed to have noticed that the Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline had retreated from their stone palaces. What's going on? Why did the Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline retreat from their stone palaces? Where did they go? Isn't that the stone palace where those despicable humans and God race traitors are? It can't be, right? Could it be that the God traitors and humans were the ones who fought them? The Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline were banished by them? The Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline experts' words. After a short while Long Chen and the others walked out of the stone palace and headed for another stone palace. Zhu Zijua Su. He couldn't help but ask Chen's bloodline God bloodline experts, Ancestor bloodline expert, Bloodline Emperor bloodline Heavenly God bloodline experts, Heavenly God Emperor Realm King experts, say this heaven's bloodlines. Long Chen nodded, but he could only say, "I must obtain the remaining power of these Emperor Lords. What else can I do but go one by one?" 2. Between the words the group arrived at another stone palace. The Divine Power Heavenly God clan seemed to be paying close attention to Long Chen and the others. They immediately discovered their movement. What are these fellows from the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation trying to do? Why are they heading towards the stone palace where the Heavenly Death God's bloodline resides? It's hard to imagine that such an anomaly would appear between the human race and the apostate. Are they trying to humiliate the 8 chaotic divine tribes? I'm afraid all the Chaos God clans are going to suffer this time. The divine strength heavenly God lineage didn't even think about the remnants of the Realm Lord's power. The remnant energy of the Sector Lord had been here for so long, yet no one had been able to obtain it. After all, everyone who had tried to devour it had all died. Long Chen and the others ventured deep into the stone palace where the heavenly death god's bloodline resided. As expected, they were stopped. The members of the heavenly death god's bloodline all exuded a black aura of death as they stared at Long Chen and the others with hostile expressions. Hurry up and get out of here. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. If it weren't for the sealing power, do you really think that you would be able to survive in this place? And now, you even dare to provoke my heavenly death god's bloodline. Long Chen took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "We don't have any other intentions. We just want you to change to another stone palace." Change to another stone palace? The heavenly death god thought that he had misheard. Could it be that these apostates and despicable humans from the heavenly harmony divine nation had really gone mad? The leader of the heavenly death god's bloodline was a half-skeletal being. The aura of death around his body was like a black thread. He took a step forward, and a black saber appeared in his right hand as he slashed through the air. He said in a cold voice, "Anyone who dares to take a step forward will be declaring war on my heavenly death god's bloodline. Don't think that we won't dare to kill you just because we're afraid of the sealing power here." Long Chen sneered as he walked forward. He actually ignored this person's words and stepped over the black thread. He said in a deep voice, "If you don't want to trigger the sealing power in a chaotic battle and put everyone in danger, then find someone to fight with me." Elder Su and the others were all ready to attack. However, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry in their hearts. The heavenly death god's bloodline had learned a lesson from the strength divine god's bloodline. If they underestimated Long Chen, they would definitely suffer a great loss. The pressure they exuded was only to intimidate the heavenly death god's bloodline so that they wouldn't start a chaotic battle. After all, they weren't like Long Chen who could use his chaos god force in this place. As expected, the heavenly death god's bloodline and the strength divine god's bloodline reacted similarly. They didn't even put Long Chen, a second-order god emperor, in their eyes. A fourth-order god emperor from the heavenly death god's bloodline quickly stepped forward. The violent aura of death transformed into thousands of living ghosts and rushed towards Long Chen to devour him. In a short span of a dozen breaths, the heavenly death god's bloodline followed in the footsteps of the strength divine god's bloodline. The leader of the heavenly death god's bloodline was completely dumbfounded. Everyone looked at Long Chen in a daze. It was as if they were looking at a monster. Then, realization dawned on them. Could it be that the person who fought with the strength divine god's bloodline was also this person? Could it be that he can defeat the strength divine god's bloodline in this place? Long Chen and the others smiled but didn't say anything. He said indifferently, "We don't want to fight with you. After all, there's a sealing power here. You don't want to risk the lives of the 8 Chaos Divine Race's bloodline to fight with us, right? We just want to move to another stone palace. Whether it's a chaotic battle or a one-on-one battle, it's up to you. We'll accompany you to the end. Up to you." Chapter 1240. The heavenly death god had no choice but to leave the stone palace again. Then, they arrived at the stone palace of the heavenly divine power god. After a long time, they almost spat out a mouthful of blood when they saw Long Chen leave the stone palace again. What on earth was he doing? Was he insulting the heavenly death god? My heavenly death god's bloodline is irreconcilable with this group of traitors and despicable humans. Once this battle ends and they leave the core area, it will be the time of their deaths. The leader of the heavenly death god's bloodline roared. Just as he finished speaking, someone exclaimed in shock, They seemed to be walking toward the heavenly void god again. This scene made them feel as if Long Chen and the others were taking advantage of their fear of the seal to provoke them. In the short span of half a day, Long Chen and the others had challenged 7 chaotic divine tribe members in succession. The chaotic divine tribe members now hated Long Chen and the others to the core. That's not right. They're going to walk through every stone palace. A member of the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline saw Long Chen walking toward them again, and he suddenly felt that something was amiss. The leader of the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline was a middle-aged man with a face full of black veins. He was also taken aback when he heard this. In a low voice, he said, "You mean they want the Realm Lord's remaining power?" Another elder from the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline shook his head in denial. The Realm Lord's remaining power is the power he left behind in the seal. Who in this world can devour it? What's the use of it? Anyone who touches it will die an unnatural death. What if, and I'm saying what if, one of them can fuse with the Realm Lord's remaining power? Everyone fell silent. Then, realization dawned on them. This explanation wasn't completely illogical. At the very least, it explained why Long Chen and the others had challenged the chaotic divine tribe members without any regard for their own safety. The Heavenly Fusion God Nation had defeated 7 chaotic divine tribe members in succession. 6 or 7 people from Long Chen's bloodline had died because of this. This kind of loss was already considered great in this place. If they merely wanted to provoke the Heavenly Fusion God Nation, it didn't make sense. Go to the nearest stone palace right now and let them see if the remnant power of the Realm Master is still there. The leader of the Heavenly Destruction Gods group immediately shouted. If there really is someone among them who can fuse with the residual power of the Realm Master, then this matter is not simple. Everyone's expression turned grave when they heard this. They understood the meaning of this sentence. Once one was able to fuse with the remnants of the Sector Lord's power, one would definitely have an inseparable relationship with the Sector Lord. Long Chen and the others might be an opportunity to break the seal ahead of time. The members of the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline gazed at Long Chen and the others from the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline. Their expressions were unprecedentedly grave. A moment later, before Long Chen and the others could step into the stone palace, the person who was sent out to investigate had already returned. The man's face flushed red, and he said in shock and excitement, "Indeed, indeed. They took away the remaining power of the Sector Lord, and all the seal beasts disappeared." The leader of the Heavenly Destruction Gods group took a deep breath, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes as he said in a cold voice, "These people actually took away the remaining power of the Sector Lord without even alerting the seal beast. If you didn't feel that something was amiss, I'm afraid that they would have fooled us today." While everyone was talking, Long Chen and the others had already arrived outside the stone palace of the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline. The leader of the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline stared at Long Chen and the others and sneered. "I really want to know who among you is able to devour the remaining power of the Sector Lord." Although this person said this, his eyes fell directly on Long Chen. Half a day later, the various god tribes already knew that Long Chen was the most famous person in this expedition. If it weren't for him, the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation probably wouldn't have been able to occupy even a single stone palace. Long Chen's eyes narrowed, and the expressions of the people behind him also gradually became grave. Although they knew that this matter couldn't be concealed for long, they still hoped that they could seize all of the remaining power of the Realm Lord before this happened. However, the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline completely destroyed their hopes. Long Chen had no intention of hiding anything. "I'm the person who can devour the remaining power of the Sector Lord. So what?" Hearing this, the members of the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline immediately formed a line and completely blocked off Long Chen and the others' escape route. "So what?" The leader of the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline shouted. The other god tribes are afraid of triggering the power of the seal and don't dare to fight to the death. However, the heavenly destruction god's bloodline isn't afraid. You won't be able to obtain the Sector Lord's power of inheritance here. Long Chen's brows were tightly furrowed, and his eyes fell on Zhu Zizhua. However, Zhu Zizhua only smiled bitterly and shook his head. His meaning was self-evident. The Destruction Tribe was born with extremely powerful destructive abilities, and their members were even more violent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been restricted by the ancient path of destruction. Zhu Zizhua was originally in control of the ancient path of destruction, so he had a deep understanding of this matter. Although the heavenly destruction god's bloodline had the ancient path of destruction as a deterrent to their bloodline, there were still many who didn't fear the rules. It was clear that the madness and destruction of their bloodline existed in their very bones. If they didn't know about the Sector Lord's remaining power, they might still be able to use the power of the seal to take advantage of it. However, it was clearly impossible for them to obtain it so easily. While everyone was in a deadlock, the other members of the Primal Chaos Divine Tribe actually walked out of their stone palaces and headed toward the heavenly destruction god's bloodline. Their faces were filled with unprecedented excitement. When the heavenly destruction god's bloodline sent people to investigate the Sector Lord's remaining power, the news quickly spread, and the various Primal Chaos Divine Tribe members were suddenly enlightened. This also explained why the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation would take the risk to come to the core of the seal and why they possessed such terrifying strength. The Heavenly Strength God's bloodline was even more vexed. They were the first Primal Chaos Divine Tribe to be challenged, and they didn't realize that Long Chen and the others' goal was the Sector Lord's remaining power. If they had discovered it earlier, things wouldn't have developed to this stage. However, in reality, the other Primal Chaos Divine Tribe members didn't even think about the Sector Lord's remaining power. Their gazes were attracted by the actions of Long Chen and the others from the very beginning. Who would believe that someone could obtain the Sector Lord's remaining power without even alerting the Seal Beast? The faces of Long Chen and the remaining 20 or so people gradually turned ashen. The situation had taken a turn for the worse. The 8 Primal Chaos Divine Tribes had already gathered in the stone palace of the heavenly destruction god's bloodline. Elder Su took a deep breath and looked deeply at Long Chen. Then, he comforted everyone and said, "Don't panic. Don't forget that this is the core of the seal. I don't believe that everyone is as crazy as the heavenly destruction god's bloodline." Chapter 1241. At the core of the seal, the 8 Chaos Divine Tribe members were gathered in a stone palace, and Long Chen and the others were surrounded. Just as Elder Su had said, although the 8 Chaos Divine Tribe members all wore extremely ugly expressions, none of them actually attacked. They were still afraid of the sealing power of the core. Only 30 or so people from each force had entered this place. In a way, these 30 or so people were not indispensable to their clans. Coming here was equivalent to risking their lives. They all had a tacit understanding that they would do their best to not force any of the forces here into a dead end. The core was an extremely sensitive place. If any of the forces wanted to make a move, everyone would be in a position of certain death. The Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation members led by Long Chen were also among them. Otherwise, they would have been killed the moment they entered this place. Long Chen surveyed his surroundings. Based on the current situation, it was somewhat unrealistic to try and obtain the last remaining power of the Realm Master. The reason why the Chaos Divine Tribe members had chosen to retreat was because they thought the Stone Palace was just a place to rest. Now that they knew that Long Chen could fuse with the item inside, how could they still retreat? Could it be that all of you have gathered here to join forces with the heavenly destruction god to suppress us? Long Chen's gaze was like a torch as he asked in a deep voice. The Chaos Divine Tribe members were already burning with rage. Long Chen's actions today had truly humiliated all of them. The leader of the heavenly void god's bloodline was the first to shout, "You're that guy who can devour the remaining power of the Realm Master? In that case, you're the true successor of the Realm Master." Although Long Chen didn't answer, everyone already had a plan in their minds. Originally, the various forces had asked around about Erdao's departure from the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation, and they all had some guesses. Now their guesses were confirmed. Rumble. Just as the situation was in a stalemate, a series of rumbling sounds came from the Seal River, and rays of strange light flowed within it. The various Chaos Divine Tribe members immediately noticed this, and their expressions became more serious. "How long do you plan to delay here? The Chaos Dragon Bone won't wait for anyone." Old Su's eyes flickered as he hurriedly took a step forward. "You won't dare to force us into a dead end here." While the various Chaos Divine Tribes were hesitating, they were worried that someone else would take the initiative. According to the previous experience of the Chaos Dragon Bone's appearance, the Chaos Dragon Bone could flow down the river at any time after the phenomenon appeared. If he could not capture it in the Seal River, it would completely escape into the Seal. At that time, no one would be able to obtain it. "It's true that we wouldn't dare to force you into a dead end in the heart of the Seal, but you'd better stay here today. Everyone, we'll leave 15 people behind to surround them. We'll surround them with more than 100 people but not kill them." "You're right. Let's wait until we're done with the Chaos Dragon Bone." The 8 chaotic gods had decided on how to deal with Long Chen and the others in just a few sentences. They left behind more than 120 people. These people all had different levels of cultivation. It was impossible for Long Chen to break through the encirclement with only 20 people. Of course, this group of people had no intention of attacking Long Chen and the others. They stared at Long Chen's people, their faces full of ridicule. Everyone knew that once someone obtained the Chaos Dragon Bone and left the heart of the Seal, Long Chen and the others would die without a doubt. Old Su and the others couldn't help but feel anxious when they saw a portion of the Chaos Divine Tribes charging toward the Seal River. Zhu Zijua said coldly, 120 people have surrounded us. Otherwise we will fight it out. We might be able to break through. They wouldn't be afraid to kill everyone. Many humans fell silent and looked toward Long Chen. They knew that Zhu Zijua's words were equivalent to sacrificing their lives. Once they attacked, those with weaker cultivations definitely wouldn't be able to survive. After all, they couldn't use their Chaos Divine power like Long Chen. Long Chen pondered for a moment and shook his head. "Don't be impatient. Let's stay here for now. The Chaos Dragon Bone will take at least an hour before it appears." "An hour?" Long Chen's words made everyone look at each other, then they nodded. Could it be that Long Chen could accurately sense the Chaos Dragon Bone? "I'm going to fuse the 8 portions of the Realm Lord's remaining power that I've already obtained. All you need to do is protect me for an hour," Long Chen continued. Old Su and the others stared at Long Chen in disbelief. Qing Xian couldn't help but remind Long Chen, "There are more than 100 people surrounding this place. They won't just stand here and watch. If they see you cultivating or breaking through, they'll definitely attack and harass you." Long Chen nodded at Qing Xian and replied, "It's fine. Let them attack. You don't have to block them." After he finished speaking, Long Chen even sat down cross-legged on the ground. He tossed the water droplets of the Realm Lord's remaining power into his mouth. This scene instantly fell into the mouths of the Chaos Divine Race's experts. More than 100 pairs of eyes stared at Long Chen. They naturally recognized what Long Chen was holding in his hand. Even 6th Order God Emperor Realm experts would die if they swallowed it. Long Chen ate them one by one as if they were candy. This guy challenged the Stone Palace consecutively. Everyone here has suffered a great deal of humiliation today. How about we interrupt him when he reaches a critical point in his cultivation? This guy's battle strength is so strong. Is he stupid? How dare he fuse with this thing at this time? He's the Realm Lord's inheritor. Since he can swallow this thing, he might have a way to stop it. Long Chen's simple action caused more than 100 Chaos Divine Races experts to discuss among themselves. Just like what Qing Xian said, there were indeed a small number of people who wanted to stop Long Chen from breaking through. There were also some who were more cautious. They believed that Long Chen wouldn't make such a mistake. After more than 100 breaths, everyone felt that Long Chen's cultivation had begun to loosen. A vast aura flowed out from Long Chen's body. This scene truly shocked everyone. It was as if they were watching Long Chen break through in front of their eyes. Long Chen directly stepped into the second layer of the Second Order God Emperor realm. Moreover, there was no sign of him stopping. That thing is indeed the pure energy left behind by the Realm Lord. If this continues, I'm afraid he'll directly step into the Third Order God Emperor realm, or even the Fourth Order God Emperor realm. I don't want to see him break through like this. Since he's breaking through so brazenly, I want to see how strong he is. Chapter 1242. Everyone was ready to stop those who came to disturb Long Chen's breakthrough. Qing Xian suddenly took a step forward and said to Old Su and Zhu Zijua, I know the young master's character the best. Since he said we don't have to bother with them, let them be. Old Su and Zhu Zijua looked at the members of the Chaos Divine Race and knew that if they really attacked, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. They were afraid that they would only be able to destroy the seal. Old Su said to Qing Xian, You should know the consequences. If we don't do anything, he might self-destruct because of the chaos in his cultivation. Qing Xian nodded firmly. She had seen Long Chen's confident expression before. She knew that Long Chen wasn't lying. Moreover, if these people continued to resist, they would only end up dying. Zhu Zijua and Old Su looked at each other and decided to retreat. Long Chen suddenly became the center of attention. He was even directly exposed in front of everyone. When the members of the Chaos Divine Race saw that everyone was retreating without the slightest intention of stopping them, they couldn't help but stop. Many of them who wanted to attack Long Chen didn't dare to come closer. Instead, they used their innate aura to pressure Long Chen. Under everyone's watchful eyes, a terrifying scene happened. Anyone who attacked Long Chen was attacked by a dazzling light that followed closely behind their attack. Whoosh! This silhouette was like an unprecedented divine weapon that directly killed the person who attacked Long Chen. More than 30 people attacked Long Chen, but more than 10 of them died in the blink of an eye. The remaining people frantically retreated back to the encirclement. This guy is too strange. Is that dazzling white light the remnant of the Realm Lord's power? The Realm Lord's power hasn't merged yet, but it's already protecting him. Killing him now is more difficult than waiting for him to break through. The noisy scene gradually quieted down because of this. No one dared to take the initiative to attack. Only Long Chen's cultivation continued to rise at lightning speed. In a short 15 minutes, he rose from the Second Order God Emperor realm to the Third Order God Emperor realm, and there were no signs of him stopping. He broke through to the Ninth Order God Emperor realm in a quarter of an hour. Everyone present felt a surge of anger in their hearts that they had to vent. Even Elder Su and the others could only laugh bitterly. It only took him 15 minutes to reach the Third Order God Emperor realm. This guy wouldn't directly advance to the Fourth or Fifth Order God Emperor realm, right? If that's the case with his battle prowess, who would dare to stop him when he breaks through the encirclement and fights for the Chaos Dragon Bone? The members of the Divine Strength Heavenly God clan were extremely fearful of Long Chen's ferocity when he attacked the mountain. Half an hour later, Long Chen's cultivation finally came to a halt. When Huang Xiaolong stood up, he was already a Third Order God Emperor realm cultivator in the 6th level. His cultivation had risen by 1 whole order and 6 levels. The Emperor Master's remnant soul replied, Your words reminded me that if you extract all my energy from the seal, my cultivation will definitely rise again. This energy is really a pleasant surprise. Even I didn't expect this. Long Chen shook his head and stood up. The seal of the primal chaos domain directly affected the life and death of countless living beings in the central region. He couldn't break the seal just because of this matter. Long Chen waved his hand and said to Old Su and Zhu Zijua, "Wait for me here. If they really want to take your life, you don't have to worry about me. All you need to do is to use the power of the Seal of 10 Directions to kill everyone here." He didn't lower his voice, and he deliberately said it for everyone to hear. Otherwise, it was inevitable that the primal chaos divine race would kill everyone because of Long Chen's departure. Of course, this was just a precautionary measure. After all, the various races besieging this place wouldn't take the risk. After he finished speaking, Long Chen actually turned into a streak of light and charged into the stone palace. The few remaining heavenly destruction gods were still guarding this place. The expressions of the heavenly destruction gods changed drastically, and they hurriedly shouted, "Everyone, stop him! Rip!" Just as he finished speaking, a halberd appeared in Long Chen's hand. The halberd slashed across his neck, and a purple light flashed, shattering his body and soul. Bang! 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 The 3 remaining heavenly destruction gods died at Long Chen's hands in the blink of an eye. The weakest among them was a 4th-order God Emperor, and the strongest was a 6th-order God Emperor. However, they couldn't even block a single attack. The thoughts of the various races' reinforcements disappeared in an instant, and they didn't even dare to step forward to stop Long Chen. A 4th-order God Emperor could kill a 6th-order God Emperor as easily as slaughtering pigs. "Those who block my path will be killed without mercy." Long Chen turned around and killing intent filled his eyes. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. At this moment, everyone understood why Long Chen had left alone. He had given them a chance to live, and he had given them the thought that they wouldn't have to attack the sealing formation. There were only 7 or 8 6th-order God Emperors guarding this place, and the rest were mostly 4th-order God Emperors. With the strength Long Chen had just displayed, he could easily lead the people behind him to kill them. There were a total of 8 Chaos Divine tribes here. Any Chaos God tribe member could attack the sealing power and destroy both the jade and the common stone. Everyone watched as Long Chen disappeared from their line of sight, and they couldn't help but smile bitterly. In just a short hour, their relationship had undergone an earth-shattering change. This person is no longer someone we can stop. If he wants to fight for the Chaos Dragon Bone, no one can stop him. One of the heavenly death gods shook his head and smiled bitterly. On the other side, Long Chen quickly collected the last remnant of the sealing formation and rushed towards the upper reaches of the sealing river. The sealing river didn't look like a real river, but it was formed by countless sealing Tao laws. These Tao laws covered almost the entire chaos domain. When Long Chen appeared, everyone was stunned. The 8 Chaos Divine tribes hadn't expected Long Chen to appear at this time. "Everyone, how have you been? The Chaos Dragon Bone is about to appear, and everything depends on fate." Long Chen looked around and said indifferently. Even though his words were simple, everyone's faces turned green. Long Chen's eyes were fixed on the source of the sealed river. With the power of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul, he knew that the Chaos Dragon Bone would appear in 10 breaths' time. At this moment, even though everyone was filled with killing intent towards Long Chen, they were also staring at the sealing river. Chapter 1243. The misfortune Heavenly God's retreat caused Long Chen's tense state of mind to sense that something was amiss. With the help of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul, he was able to observe the misfortune Heavenly God's actions. Something's not right. Long Chen, who had been staring intently at the Seal River, suddenly retreated. The other 7 Chaos Divine tribes were also stunned. They couldn't understand why Long Chen had retreated. After all, the Chaos Dragon Bone was about to appear. What's wrong with him? The Chaos Dragon Bone could appear at any time. Why is he retreating? Why did the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline go to the lower reaches of the Seal River? Be careful. Something's not right. Although they were on high alert, they were unwilling to leave the area closest to the upper reaches. Long Chen's sudden retreat caused many people to be on high alert. The misfortune heavenly god's bloodline frowned and snorted coldly. Rumble. Long Chen had only retreated for a few breaths when he heard another rumble. The countless Tao laws in the sealed river began to surge like boiling water. A red bone that looked like a dragon's sculpture was wrapped in endless sealing power as it flowed down the river. The Chaos Dragon Bone. Long Chen's pupils constricted and he began to feel nervous. If he could obtain the Chaos Dragon Bone, his cultivation would definitely reach the Fifth Order God Emperor realm. Then, he would have the qualifications to set foot in the Chaos Lands. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul could clearly sense when the Chaos Dragon Bone would appear. If it weren't for the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline's strange movements, he would have definitely obtained the Chaos Dragon Bone. This is the Seal's core. What is the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline trying to do? Long Chen watched as the various Chaos Divine tribes began to fight for the Chaos Dragon Bone. Although he was anxious, he knew that he had to pay special attention to the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline after the misfortune Dao's return. The misfortune heavenly god and Long Chen did not make a move. Although the other Chaos Divine tribes were on high alert, their attention was attracted by the Chaos Dragon Bone. Crackle! In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen people died. They didn't even have the chance to cry out. The various Chaos Divine clans had made ample preparations for the fight for the Chaos Divine Nation. After a round of fighting, in less than a dozen breaths, a member of the heavenly god of death's bloodline charged into the sealed river and was about to grab the Chaos Dragon Bone. A sudden change occurred. It was as if the Chaos Dragon Bone had been bound within the sealed river. No matter how hard the Chaos Dragon Bone tried, it wouldn't budge at all. Crack, crack, crack. A series of ear-piercing sounds rang out as pairs of gray hands suddenly reached out from the sealed river. The grayish-white hand grabbed the Chaos Dragon Bone. What is this thing? It actually managed to trap the Chaos Dragon Bone in the sealed river? The members of the Heavenly Death God's bloodline exclaimed in shock. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, a pair of gray arms suddenly appeared behind him and pierced through his body. Then, a gray light flickered and swallowed his divine soul. Meanwhile, more and more grayish-white creatures crawled out of the sealed river. Some of these grayish-white creatures belonged to the human clan, while others belonged to the Chaos Divine clan. They had all sorts of strange appearances. However, everyone could clearly sense that there wasn't a trace of life in them. They were completely dead. Why are there dead creatures in the sealed river, fighting for the Chaos Dragon Bone? Don't you understand? These dead creatures are shrouded in the aura of misfortune. These dead creatures are the work of the heavenly god of misfortune. The heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline ignored the Chaos Divine clans and laid down these creatures here in advance. The leaders of the various Chaos Divine clans quickly discovered the connection between the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline and the grayish-white corpses. The members of the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline didn't hesitate at all, nor did they have any intention of explaining themselves. The leader of the grayish-robed group walked out and said coldly to the crowd, "Since you've come this time, then all of you shall die here. The heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline wants the Chaos Dragon Bone and the Imperial Lord's successor." As he spoke, as the leader's hand flashed with brilliance, more grayish-white corpses crawled out of the sealed river. There was even a group of unique god clan corpses that were glowing with gray light that charged straight at Long Chen. Most of these corpses were gathered in the upper reaches of the sealed river. As soon as they appeared, they surrounded almost all of the Chaos Divine clans. Long Chen was in the middle and lower reaches of the river. This gave him a chance to catch his breath, and he quickly retreated. This group of corpses was extremely evil. Even level 4 and level 5 God Emperors couldn't resist them at all. With such a large number of corpses appearing, even Long Chen had to temporarily avoid them. However, the members of the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline flew over and blocked his path. The leader stared at Long Chen and sneered. "Since you've come to the core, do you still intend to leave?" Long Chen's expression darkened. The halberd in his hand was like a rainbow. Without saying a word, he charged directly into the group of Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline. More than a dozen members of the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline felt that Long Chen was courting death. They unleashed their innate abilities to suppress Long Chen. Poochie! Poochie! A terrifying scene appeared. Long Chen's Chaos God Force surged out like a tidal wave. His Fourth Order God Emperor's battle prowess was pushed to the limit. Under the halberd's attack, no one in the same realm as him was able to withstand a single blow. Even Fifth Order God Emperor's bodies were shattered in an instant. Chaos God Force. He can actually use Chaos God Force. No wonder he was so strong before. Fourth Order God Emperor? His cultivation actually increased by 2 orders. Advancing from the Second Order God Emperor realm to the Fourth Order God Emperor realm in a single day. Is this the terror of the remnant energy of the Emperor Lords? More than a dozen people tried to stop Long Chen. In less than 10 breaths' time, 4 of them were killed. No matter how strong their minds were, they were completely stunned. Long Chen broke out of the encirclement in an instant and rushed towards the stone palace. When he turned around, he discovered that the members of the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline were also extremely afraid of the corpses. The Chaos Divine tribe members who had gathered upstream suffered heavy casualties. Only a dozen or so of them managed to escape. In a short period of time, the entire area around the Seal River was drowned by countless corpses. Long Chen even saw a few people preparing to detonate the seal and destroy everyone. They even wanted to make the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline pay the price. No matter how terrifying their attacks were, when they landed on the ground, countless corpses would appear and block their attacks. Inside the Stone Palace, the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nations experts and the Chaos Divine Tribes experts were no longer in a stalemate. Their eyes were fixed on the Seal River. What did the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline release? Why is it so powerful? The Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline wants to kill all of us here. What should we do now? There's no way we can withstand such terrifying power. Why don't we destroy the seal and cause chaos? Chapter 1244. Inside the Stone Palace, all of the Chaos Divine Race's experts were thinking about activating the seal's power. More and more corpses appeared, and a grayish-white aura covered the sky. It was as if every single one of them was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Their final choice was to die together with the Chaos Divine Race. Old Su, Qing Xian, and the rest of the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nations experts were shocked by the sudden turn of events. Only a few traitors from the Misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline were as pale as a sheet of paper. They walked out from the crowd and said solemnly, "It's too late for you to activate the seal's power now. You're just asking for trouble." This is the Misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline's misfortune sealing death art. If you don't believe me, you can try attacking the seal. The corpses will devour all of your energy. This art is the strongest foundation of our race. Every single one of these corpses was once a rare expert of our race. Everyone's expression turned ugly when they heard that. They had never imagined that the Misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline would be so crazy as to mobilize their entire race's foundation. It seemed like the Misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline had made all the necessary preparations for the appearance of the Chaos Dragon Bone. Not only did they want to obtain the Chaos Dragon Bone, but they also wanted to kill all of the Chaos Divine Race's experts. When the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nations experts saw that Long Chen had returned, they heaved a sigh of relief. They quickly walked up to him and asked, "I'm afraid there's no way to obtain the Chaos Dragon Bone. The only thing we can do now is to leave this place." Long Chen's expression was incomparably solemn. He shook his head and replied, "I'm afraid it's already extremely difficult to leave this place. Otherwise, the misfortune heavenly gods' bloodline wouldn't be hiding here and there. They're also afraid of the corpses. However, they're much better off than us." While everyone was still hesitating, the other Sixth Order God Emperors who were lucky enough to survive had ashen faces. In the end, their gazes landed on Long Chen. The leaders of the various Chaos Divine Races experts walked towards Long Chen and said, "Let's reconcile for now. We must think of a way to leave this place. If you're really the World Lord's inheritor, you might have a way." Long Chen muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment. He surveyed the crowd and discovered that the misfortune heavenly gods people who were originally here had already disappeared. "I'm just curious about one thing. Why did they want to kill all of you?" Long Chen pondered for a moment and asked in confusion. "This is no different from offending the 7 chaotic divine tribes." The members of the chaotic divine tribe frowned as well. They felt that this matter did not make sense. No matter what methods the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline used, even if he had violated the agreement and participated in the battle for the Chaos Dragon Bone, there was no need to kill them all. If their goal was only the Chaos Dragon Bone, then everything should be over already. A moment later, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Long Chen nodded and replied, "Now it seems that there is only one explanation. Their goal is not just the Chaos Dragon Bone. This matter is definitely closely related to the Tao of Adversity. He wants to use the Chaos Dragon Bone to make a big fuss in the core." A few of the misfortune heavenly gods traitors behind Long Chen seemed to have thought of something when they saw the corpses gradually spreading toward them. A middle-aged man in gray robes exclaimed, "The Tao of Adversity! The Tao of Adversity wants to open the seal between the chaotic realm and the Central Province territory. He used to call himself the Heavenly Fusion Emperor and has been talking about this matter ever since. He has always believed that the Chaos Dragon Bone is an opportunity to break the seal in advance. He just needs a helping hand." Everyone fell silent, but they could not help but nod in agreement. The members of the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation felt that this matter made sense. If the Tao of Adversity had not returned to the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline, there would not be so many variables in this place. The Heavenly Dragon Bone, that Dragon Bone is the Heavenly Dragon Bone. The Imperial Lord's remnant soul seemed to have suddenly thought of something and said to Long Chen. The Dragon Bone that had rushed out from the sealed river was filled with the power of the seal. Even though the Imperial Lord could sense its aura, it was impossible for him to know which Dragon Bone it was. Moreover, Long Chen was in the middle of the lower reaches and was quite far away from the Dragon Bone. Long Chen was puzzled, but he hurriedly asked the Imperial Lord. "The Heavenly Dragon Bone can use the bloodline souls of the chaotic gods to move them all out of the chaotic realm." The Imperial Lord's remnant soul continued to explain to Long Chen. He doesn't want to destroy the sealing spell formation. Instead, he wants to directly bring all the chaotic gods to the Central Province territory. Although the Imperial Lord's remnant soul's explanation was simple, Long Chen could understand the meaning behind it. The Heavenly Dragon Bone was not some kind of offensive divine ability. Instead, it possessed a power similar to spatial teleportation. This power was marked by the bloodline souls of the dead. The instigator of this was definitely the Tao of Adversity. If Long Chen's guess was correct, then even if the Heavenly Light God's bloodline was not present, the Tao of Adversity had most likely already thought of a way to obtain a portion of the bloodline souls of the dead to form a mark. He wanted to bring the 9 chaotic gods within the chaotic realm back to the light of day. The Tao of Adversity had actually already known about the Chaos Dragon Bone before it had even appeared. This was truly inconceivable. The fact that he had set up this trap meant that he knew about the origins of the second Chaos Dragon Bone in advance. Swoosh, swoosh. Countless corpses had already madly surged into the stone palace from all directions. Long Chen soared into the sky and stood in midair. Relying on the Imperial Lord's remnant soul's ability to sense the Chaos Dragon Bone, he quickly found a corpse that held the Chaos Dragon Bone. Just as he had expected. At this moment, the Tao of Adversity had already appeared beside the corpse. The Tao of Adversity stared at Long Chen and sneered. Perhaps you've thought of many ways to deal with me, and you even have the Chaos Demon Star Dragon Bone in your possession. However, you would never have guessed that I already knew about the existence of the second Chaos Dragon Bone. You still have one final option, and that is to use the Chaos Dragon Bone to bombard the sealed area and completely detonate the seal's power. Then, all living beings within the chaotic realm will die a violent death. I don't think you'll do that. After all, there are still many humans here, aren't there? Surrender and I'll spare your life today. I only want the Realm Lord's inheritance. The two of them stared at each other in midair. The Tao of Adversity seemed to have already predicted everything, and he continued to sneer. Long Chen did not say a word. Just as the Tao of Adversity had said, he had indeed lost this battle. He thought that with the Chaos Dragon Bone in hand, he was already in an invincible position. However, he never imagined that the Tao of Adversity had already known about the second Chaos Dragon Bone's hidden power. If that wasn't the case, the Tao of Adversity's bloodline would never allow him to use his hidden power. These corpses had practically ignored all the laws within the sealed area. They could even immerse themselves in the sealed river without triggering the seal's power in the slightest. Long Chen stared at the Tao of Adversity and took a deep breath. With a move of his right hand, a surge of chaos force gradually condensed and the phantom of the Black Star Dragon Bone appeared. Chapter 1245. Thousands of corpses rushed over like a tide. Long Chen and Ah Dao stood in the air. Adept Dao's victorious expression gradually turned gloomy. His eyes stared at Long Chen's movements. He did not believe that Long Chen would really use the chaotic Devil Star Dragon Bone, nor did he believe that Long Chen would be able to survive the seal's power. It was just as Ah Dao said. If Long Chen really used the chaotic Devil Star Dragon Bone's power, the entire hub would completely explode. At that time, all the living beings in the chaotic domain would die. Everyone here was completely stunned when they saw Long Chen's actions. Their faces were filled with shock, but they did not know what to do. Every single one of them had thought of attacking the seal's power to cause the deaths of all the people who came here, destroying everything in their path. However, they had never thought of causing the seal's power to go berserk and destroy all the living beings in the chaotic domain. Elder Su, Qing Xian, and the others also stared at Long Chen. Long Chen's hands did not stop, but he knew in his heart that this was the only chance to save everyone. The hub's uniqueness made Ah Dao and Misfortune God's bloodline invincible. If they wanted to find a chance of survival, they had to leave this place. Just like how he did not know that Ah Dao would obtain the information that the second Dragon Bone would be the heaven-changing Dragon Bone, Ah Dao did not know that Long Chen had already seen through his thoughts. He wanted to force Ah Dao to use the heaven-changing Dragon Bone now. Ah Dao had already made all the preparations to send everyone out of the chaotic domain. Once Ah Dao was unwilling to die under the seal's power, he would definitely use the heaven-changing Dragon Bone in advance. Rumble, 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 rumble. Suddenly, Long Chen sounded behind him. Light flowed in his hand, and a black star gradually condensed. The entire hub began to become chaotic at a speed visible to the naked eye. The terrifying fluctuations even suppressed the tens of thousands of corpses. Stop. Do you know what you are doing? Ah Dao's expression finally became somewhat uncontrollable. You want all the living beings in the chaotic domain to die with you. Long Chen still acted as if he did not feel anything. As you say, I should wait for death here? Rather than that, I might as well take a gamble. Long Chen's hand was still moving rapidly through the air. The mysterious patterns fell faster and faster towards the black star in the sky. The entire hub seemed like it would collapse at any moment. Adeo suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. You are the Realm Master's successor. I want to see if you really don't care about the lives of all living beings. What he did not know was that Long Chen was certain that he would use the Etion Dragon Bone. The remaining members of the Chaos God clan felt chills running down their spines. The battle between Long Chen and Yi Dao had actually reached this stage. Their every word and action directly affected the life and death of the entire chaotic realm. Many members of the primal Chaos God tribe could not help but ask Long Chen to compromise so that all living beings in the primal chaos realm would not die with him. Long Chen did not hesitate at all and continued to activate the Devil Star technique. The vast demonic stars were gradually condensing, and a frightening power was on the verge of erupting. The sealing power of the core had reached an unprecedented level of density. This power was left behind by the Realm Master. It was enough to destroy everything here and even affect the entire primal chaos domain. Yi Dao stared fixedly at Long Chen's right hand. He had once held the demonic star Chaos Dragon Bone, so he naturally knew the terrifying power within. Although he could not completely refine it, he clearly knew that once Long Chen drew the last rune, the entire core of the seal would be completely shaken. I will not let you destroy all of this, ancient Etion formation. Yi Dao saw that the Dao Law in Long Chen's hand was about to fall, and he was finally afraid. He made his choice. The Chaos Dragon Bone in his right hand suddenly released a myriad of divine light, as if countless blood and remnant souls were being nurtured within, and then turned into endless runes that merged into heaven and earth. At the same time, everyone's body began to turn into nothingness, and even Long Chen was the same. The corner of Long Chen's lips suddenly curled into a smile. He looked at Yi and said, "The heaven-swapping technique was originally a supreme formation contained within the Chaos Dragon Bone. It was originally a technique used by the Realm Lord to change the world. I am truly surprised that you know how to use it. However, do you think that only this formation can be activated instantly? In fact, I can also activate the demonic star's power instantly." Once he said that, Yi Dao was completely stunned, and his mind instantly became clear. He instantly understood that Long Chen was forcing him to use the ancient Etion formation in advance. Originally, he had already killed Long Chen and everyone else today. Just as Long Chen had guessed, he had already made all the preparations to use the ancient Etion formation. The bloodline souls of the 9 Chaos Divine Tribes could use this formation to allow the 9 Chaos Divine Tribes to leave the chaotic domain without destroying the seal. It was the same for the humans here. The humans were different from the Chaos Divine Tribe, and in a way, they were not living beings sealed here. With the ancient Etion formation, they did not need bloodline souls to be transported directly. Today's formation was equivalent to enveloping the entire chaotic domain, and all living beings would be sent to the middle state. Although Yi Dao was furious, it was useless. At this moment, he could no longer interfere with the ancient Etion formation. He looked up to the sky. As far as his eyes could see, the sky seemed to have turned into a corner of the formation. When the Emperor Lord's remnant soul saw this, he could not help but smile bitterly. I didn't expect the ancient Etion formation Dragon Bone to become a disguised item to unlock the Chaos Divine Tribe's seal. That's really extraordinary. Just because he has the demonic star Dragon Bone, he has such a deep understanding of the Chaos Dragon Bone. It's really rare. Long Chen's body gradually disappeared, and his eyes never left Yi Dao. The reason Yi Dao had prepared for the second Chaos Dragon Bone was probably because he had found out about it before he left the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. It was just as the Emperor Lord had said. After Dao obtained the ancient Etion formation dragonbone, he could activate the formation inside. Although it was mainly because of himself, he must have been prepared. The formation inside the ancient Etion formation dragonbone was left behind by the Emperor Lord. Even if there was no external force, as long as one knew how to activate it, they could draw on the power of the formation inside. Of course, if that was the case, it could only be used once in a while. Dao had just obtained it, but he already knew how to activate it. Moreover, he could activate it instantly. It was quite unbelievable. As far as the eye could see, more and more people were disappearing into thin air. The Dao Law in Long Chen's hand did not fall, and the demonic star's power also turned into powder. The entire sky of the Chaos Domain was completely enveloped by endless formation veins. With the Chaos Dragon Bone in hand, Dao stood still at the core of the seal. The various Chaos Divine Tribe members looked at themselves in shock. However, some of them already knew what was about to happen. The ancient Etion formation technique. This is the Realm Lord's ancient Etion formation technique. I've seen the Realm Lord use this technique to save the Divine Tribe in the Chaos Domain. Someone activated the Realm Lord's technique. Could it be the second Chaos Dragon Bone? The heavens are helping us. There's actually an ancient Etion formation technique in the inheritance. The Chaos Divine Tribe is finally leaving the Chaos Domain. Chapter 1246. The people from the Imperial College seemed to be able to speed through the void during the teleportation. They flew to Long Chen's side and transmitted their voices to him. Why is there such a terrifying change in the Chaos Domain? Long Chen looked at the people from the Imperial College, and his heart skipped a beat. Then, he understood what was going on. To a certain extent, the people from the Imperial College had completely mastered the World Overlord's universe inheritance. It was reasonable for them to be able to control themselves during the teleportation. Long Chen shook his head and sighed. The 9 Chaos Divine Tribes and all the humans in the Chaos Domain will be teleported to the Middle Continent. Teleported to the Middle Continent? The people from the Imperial College were shocked. They had gathered a lot of information during their travels in the Chaos Domain. The 9 Chaos Divine Tribes had great discrimination against the human race. Once they arrived at the Middle Continent, it would cause an unprecedented disaster. Even though the Imperial College was confident that they could protect themselves, they were still part of the human race. During this period of time, they had seen how the human race was worse than pigs and dogs in the Chaos Domain. This matter has something to do with me. When we return to the Middle Continent, I will think of a way to solve this matter. Long Chen seemed to have made a decision. Such a terrifying teleportation force took more than 2 hours before everyone could feel the spatial force gradually stabilizing. At this moment, above the Middle Continent, countless experts from various forces were standing in the air and looking at the sky. The sky above the Middle Continent was covered with endless array Dao runes as far as the eye could see. These Dao runes contained an unprecedented amount of chaos energy. It was as if they were real, and they were pouring down like rain. Jian Shi-san and the others stared at this terrifying array in a daze. They had no idea where this array came from. Buzz, 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 buzz. A series of explosions sounded, and rays of divine light emerged from the array. Countless chaos gods covered in scales blotted out the sky in an instant. Rumble. The experts from the Blessed Lands looked as if they were struck by lightning, and they fell from the sky. Exclamations of shock and astonishment filled the air like a tidal wave. How can this be? Is this the Chaos Divine Tribe? Third Order God Emperor, Fourth Order God Emperor, and even Sixth Order God Emperor. What a terrifying aura! Is this the legendary darling of heaven and earth, the God clan born from chaos? The experts in the sky fell into the dust, and the people in the blessed lands trembled uncontrollably as they knelt on the ground. The 9 chaotic divine clans had only just appeared, and they hadn't even said much. Yet, the entire central state was kneeling on the ground. Any member of the primal chaos divine tribe was strong enough to wipe out the entire middle state. In the entire central continent, a third-order god emperor was considered the pinnacle. Among the primal chaos divine clan, a third-order god emperor was the average cultivation level. Just the pressure coming from the sky was enough to make the various blessed lands lose all thoughts of resisting. The rays of light gradually disappeared. The formation runes in the sky rolled back and fell towards the Chaos Dragon Bone in Ideo's hand, as if nothing had happened. The primal Chaos Dragon Bone in Ideo's hand lost its brilliance, as if it had lost all its power. The 9 chaotic god tribes were completely stunned. Just a moment ago, they were still in the cities of the various clans. Who would have thought that they would be standing in the central continent now? We really left the primal chaos domain? This is the central continent, the land ruled by the despicable human race. For countless years, we were suppressed in the primal chaos domain by the Realm Master, and became the source of chaos divine power for the entire central continent. Today we are free. Now that the ancient sacred world master is no longer here, we, the primal chaos divine tribe, will rule the entire human race. Although the 9 chaotic god tribes had all arrived in the central continent, they were still very far away from each other. Every chaotic god tribe member seemed to be extremely excited. Their eyes seemed to be shining with divine light that could pierce through the void and look down on the various blessed lands. In the sky above the flowing waterfall blessed lands territory, Adeo stood in the air with the Chaos Dragon Bone in his hand. Behind him were many members of the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline. He stared at Long Chen and said coldly, "This is the heaven harmonization phenomenon that I promised. If you didn't appear, the 9 chaotic god tribes wouldn't have been part of my plan." Long Chen took a deep breath. He looked at the countless members of the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline who were rapidly approaching Adeo, and they showed no intention of retreating. Long Chen met Adeo's eyes. He suddenly said in a low voice, "If I'm not wrong, the entire misfortune heavenly god's bloodline has been abandoned by you. You still have a way to survive." As Long Chen spoke, he rose into the air and rushed into the 9 heavens. His speed became faster and faster. He clearly knew that Adeo was forcing him to use the Devil Star Chaos Dragon Bone. He had no choice. Otherwise, it would be the end of the central continent. You underestimated the power of the Devil Star Chaos Dragon Bone. Long Chen's voice entered Adeo's ears, and he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. In the blink of an eye, Long Chen slapped the air with his right hand, and a black dragon roared out of his body. Its roar shook the heavens. The black dragon crawled for millions of kilometers. Its head and tail were connected, and the area around its body was completely dark. It was like a black hole that emitted a terrifying aura. The members of the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline, who had been rushing over, all stopped when they saw this. Qing Xian and the others, as well as the members of the Imperial Academy of Sciences, stared blankly at this scene. "Adeo, I'll spare your life today. Take a good look at the power of this Devil Star." Long Chen's voice was like thunder. His voice seemed to come from the body of the black dragon. A terrifying power accompanied his voice and spread throughout the entire central continent. "As the successor of the ancient sacred world master, I protect the countless living beings in the central continent. Anyone who disobeys will be exterminated in the name of the ancient sacred world master." These 2 voices seemed to pass through space and rumble through the central continent. The 9 members of the primal chaos divine tribe all froze. The heavenly death god's bloodline was currently located at the northern border of the central continent. When the members of their race heard these words, they acted as if they didn't know anything. They only sneered. "The ancient sacred world master? He died a long time ago. Who dares to say that they'll exterminate our primal chaos divine tribe? So many humans. Our tribe will bring them endless death. Despicable humans. What's the point of keeping them alive if they're below the divine emperor realm? They might as well become nourishment for our heavenly death god's bloodline. Buzz. Countless divine emperors from the heavenly death god's bloodline charged toward the continent. Boundless aura of death swept through every inch of the continent like a tsunami. Wherever the aura passed, all living beings below the divine emperor realm were turned into ashes. Only their souls remained. Rumble. In the sky above the flowing waterfall-blessed land, the countless experts of the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline suddenly trembled. They all stared at the sky in shock. Adeo also stared at the black dragon. Chapter 1247. The black dragon opened its eyes and spoke in human language. For a moment, countless members of the misfortune god's bloodline trembled. Even Doom stared fixedly at Long Chen, not moving a single step. Rumble. The black dragon's head and tail were connected, and a star filled with demonic runes seemed to be formed in the area around its body. A pillar of black light soared into the sky and pierced through the air. The tail of this pillar of light was still connected to the demonic star, but it disappeared into the horizon as if it had a life of its own. Not a single person was harmed along the way. Although the divine emperors of the heavenly death god's bloodline were extremely far away, they felt as if they had been struck by lightning. It was as if doomsday had arrived. They all suppressed the aura of death around them and looked into the distance. In just a short moment, a pillar of black light pierced through the air and blotted out the sun. It instantly engulfed the members of the heavenly death god's bloodline at the very front. The black light collapsed, and like a tide, it instantly invaded every corner of the heavenly death god's bloodline. All of this lasted for less than 100 breaths. The eyes of all the members of the heavenly death god's bloodline were as black as ink, and it was as if a demonic star was floating within them. Splat! 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 The aura of death around them actually completely transformed into demonic aura, which then shattered their own bodies. The other 8 Chaos Divine tribe members all used various divine abilities and spells to sense the vast power of the heavenly death god's bloodline. Various scenes were seen by them in various forms. The various Chaos Divine tribe members felt chills run down their spines. In particular, the members of the misfortune god's bloodline were extremely silent as they stared fixedly at Long Chen. Long Chen still stood in place with his eyes closed, and the black dragon in the sky was still connected head and tail. When the black light rolled back, it was actually filled with the souls of the heavenly death god's bloodline. These countless souls finally fell silent within the black star. Only then did the black dragon roar and fall toward Long Chen again, completely disappearing without a trace. At this moment, Long Chen finally opened his eyes. His face was extremely pale, and ink-black demonic aura rose and fell around his body. It was as if it wanted to drown him. Long Chen's eyes were still on Ideo and he said coldly, "Do you think I can use the Devil Star technique a second time? You should be glad that I didn't slaughter the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline or take your life today." Adeo stood there in a daze. Looking into Long Chen's eyes, he couldn't help but take a few steps back. A moment later, he looked at the Chaos Dragon bone in his hand and laughed maniacally. Then, he bent over and began to cry. Long Chen glanced at the misfortune god's bloodline and said, "Remember my words. If any primal Chaos Divine tribe dares to wreak havoc in the central region, the heavenly death god's bloodline will serve as a warning. I can still use the Devil Star technique again in a short period of time. I also want to see which clan is willing to take the lead." After saying that, Long Chen turned around and was about to leave with the people from the Imperial College and the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. Before he left, "I can't take the transmutation dragon bone from your hands right now, but I'll come back for it in the end. he muttered, and his voice gradually turned cold. Come with me now and I'll remove the Devil Star aura from your body. Otherwise, I won't show any mercy next time. Long Chen didn't turn around. But everyone knew that his words were meant for Adeo. The people from the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation shook their heads and sighed. No matter what Adeo's goal was, without him, the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation wouldn't have existed, and so many traitors and humans wouldn't have been able to survive until today. The scene of the ancestor of Adeo saving Long Chen's life before his death was still vivid in their minds. Long Chen and the others didn't hesitate at all and fled into the distance. Adeo threw the transmutation dragon bone at Long Chen in front of the entire misfortune god's bloodline. Long Chen grabbed at the air with his right hand and the chaos dragon bone flew into his hand. Then, it disappeared without a trace. Adeo stared bitterly at Long Chen's actions and muttered to himself, "You really are the Realm Lord's successor, and I'm nothing." Long Chen looked deeply at Adeo. At this moment, he finally understood. Although Adeo's mind had changed greatly due to the Devil Star aura from the Devil Star Chaos Dragon Bone, he wasn't as crazy as Adeo. The reason he was like this was because he really thought of himself as the Realm Lord's successor. Just like how his cultivation soared after he obtained the Devil Star Chaos Dragon Bone, and how he could activate the formation inside after obtaining the Transmutation Dragon Bone. Let's go. This way, your father's death won't be in vain. Long Chen shook his head and sighed. Everyone left and Adeo followed behind just like that. Within the central state, the 9 Chaos God tribes appeared out of thin air in the sky above their respective territories. They had just arrived, and one of the tribes had already been completely annihilated. The endless thoughts in their hearts were strangled in the cradle. Who would have thought that Long Chen could really activate the Devil Star Chaos technique and kill an entire tribe of Chaos God tribes? Such a move was enough to intimidate the other 8 Chaos God tribes. The 8 Chaos God tribes looked at the fertile land below and the countless humans. Their eyes shone brightly, but in the end, they could only sigh. Especially the Misfortune God tribe, they chose to rebuild the Divine City with Chaos God power on the spot. They didn't have the slightest intention of challenging Long Chen's authority. They had witnessed how terrifying Long Chen's Devil Star Chaos technique was. That power wasn't something Long Chen, a divine emperor, could perform. That was the power of a realm lord through and through. Even so, although the various Chaos God tribes didn't make any big moves, there were earth-shattering changes within the forces of the Blessed Lands. Everyone was on tenterhooks. Originally, the forces of the Blessed Lands controlled the strongest fighting power in the central state. However, with the arrival of the Chaos God tribe, they were nothing. In just half a day, all the leaders of the forces of the Blessed Lands left their clans and headed to Azure Dragon Blessed Land. They wanted to see Long Chen. If it weren't for Long Chen, the central state would have become a land of chaos by now. The Death God tribe was exterminated as soon as they started massacring the humans. Even so, a large number of humans had died. It was evident from this. Within Azure Dragon Blessed Land, Long Chen chose to cultivate in seclusion within the Blessed Land as soon as he returned to his clan. The one who followed him wasn't Qin Xian, Jian Shisan, or Elder Su, but Doom Dao. Within the Blessed Land, Long Chen sat cross-legged on the green tree again. The demonic aura around him dissipated slightly. This time, he used the Devil Star Chaos technique casually. However, the price he paid was unimaginable. If he used it a second time, he might really lose his life here. However, he knew that the various Chaos God tribes wouldn't be the first to stand out. The threat of being exterminated wasn't something they could bear. Chapter 1248. Yi Dao and Long Chen were both in the Blessed Land space. Just as Yi Dao said, Long Chen was extremely weak right now. His entire body was filled with demonic aura. The slightest carelessness would cause his mind to fall into chaos, making it impossible for him to use any power. Long Chen's eyes widened slightly. He looked at Yi Dao and replied, "If you really wanted to kill me, you wouldn't have given me the heaven-changing dragon bone and followed me to this blessed land space." Yi Dao did not say a word. He did not refute Long Chen, nor did he answer him. The two of them did not communicate anymore. The demonic aura around Long Chen was gradually absorbed by Qing Mu. The power of chaos appeared around him once again. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Long Chen felt that the power around him had recovered. He moved his right hand. A black dragon roared out from his body and charged at Yi Dao. Yi Dao looked at the black dragon. He did not have any intention of dodging. The black dragon passed through Yi Dao's body, then returned to Long Chen's body. Yi Dao stood where he was and did not seem to have changed at all, but rays of divine light bloomed in his eyes. His entire temperament changed greatly. He was like a person who had transcended the mortal world, light and peaceful. Under the gray robe, Yi Dao's body trembled violently. His hands gradually spread out in front of his chest. Drops of hot tears fell on his hands. In an instant, endless guilt invaded his heart. He saw humans dying tragically in his hands. The final scene was fixed on the day he left the heavenly harmony divine nation. I killed my own father with my own hands." Yi Dao's voice was unprecedentedly hoarse. Long Chen looked at Yi Dao. He could not help but sigh. At this moment, he finally understood why the ancestor of Yi Dao wanted Long Chen to give Yi Dao a chance even if he died. Yi Dao himself was not a cold-hearted person. He was not a bloodthirsty person. He was only affected by the power of the demonic star when he was forcefully refining the Chaos Dragon Bone. Long Chen looked at Yi Dao. He shook his head and said, "What do you plan to do next? If you are willing, you can follow me. I can teach you the Dao as the Realm Lord." These words were not made by Long Chen himself, but by the Emperor himself. The Emperor Lord had indeed taken a fancy to the Dao of Disaster's talent and had the intention of compensating him. After all, the chaotic Devil Star Dragonbone was originally a part of the Realm Lord's inheritance, but it had changed Adept Dao's life. Dao did not recover for a long time. When his emotions stabilized, he shook his head and rejected Long Chen's words. Using the art of Devil Star to intimidate the 8 chaotic divine clans is not a long-term solution. The 8 chaotic divine clans' discrimination against the human race has been deeply rooted in their bones. Once the conflict breaks out, the entire Central Plains will become a purgatory for the human race. I want you to help me use the heaven-swapping technique again and send the remaining 8 Chaos Divine tribes back to the Chaos Land in the galaxy. They'll return to where they belong. When Edo finished speaking, he bowed deeply to Long Chen. Long Chen stared at Edo and frowned. You should know better than anyone that 60% of the energy stored in the Etion Dragon Bone has been consumed. If you activate it again in a short period of time and teleport such a terrifying distance and number of people, you might lose your life even with my help. Activating the ancient formation of heaven-swapping technique again to teleport the 8 Chaos Divine tribes to the place where the Chaos Divine tribes gathered outside the endless galaxy required energy that no Divine Emperor could bear. What Edo said was to use his life to activate the heaven-swapping technique again. This happened because of me. If it weren't for my obsession, the clans in the chaotic domain wouldn't have ended up in this state. The Chaos Land in the galaxy is where they should go. Edo shook his head and then turned to leave the blessed land. Long Chen watched Edo's departing figure and did not say anything in the end. Just as Edo had said, the safest way was to send the Chaos Divine tribes back to the Chaos Land in the galaxy. Relying solely on the art of Devil Star to intimidate them was only a temporary measure. It was impossible for the 8 Chaos Divine tribes to coexist with the countless humans in the Central Plains. The conflict would eventually reach a point where it was impossible for them to work together. Once a portion of the Chaos Divine tribes made a move against the humans, things would get out of hand. This Edo is really a moldable talent. I'm afraid other than you, he's the only one who can activate the heaven-swapping dragon bone again. The Emperor Master's remnant soul said to Long Chen. Now that you've reached the Fourth Order God Emperor realm, you should head to the Chaos Land in the galaxy. That will be the place where you'll become a titled Emperor Master. Long Chen nodded and could only agree in the end. Long Chen then left the Blessed Land and called for the Palace Master of the Imperial Academy, Jian Shisan, and the others. When the Palace Master of the Imperial Academy heard that Long Chen planned to bring the 8 Chaos Divine Tribes to the Chaos Land in the galaxy, none of them felt the slightest bit of fear. Instead, they were excited and agreed immediately. The Palace Master of the Imperial Academy said, "In the Chaos Domain, we already have a rough understanding of the 9 Chaos Divine Tribes. They were born in the Chaos and are the favored children of heaven and earth. How terrifying would such a terrifying race be if they exist in the galaxy?" Jian Shisan also agreed without hesitation. He was so focused on the sword that he probably didn't know what fear was. He no longer cared about life and death. After a round of discussion, in the end, Long Chen, the Heaven's Fate Palace, and Shanghai came up with many plans to restrict the various blessed lands. They even included the Azure Dragon Blessed Land under the Heaven's Fate Palace. 10 days later, Edo once again appeared in front of Long Chen. He seemed to have made all the necessary preparations. Long Chen looked at Edo and couldn't help but ask, "You don't have to do this. 10 years is enough for the heaven-swapping dragon bone to recover 50% of its strength. At that time, I'll activate the heaven-swapping ancient formation with you. You might not die." Edo persisted and said, "In these 10 days, the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline has already killed 100 humans. These 100 humans actually dared to brazenly enter the divine city built by the misfortune heavenly god just because of what you said that day. 10 years is too long. I'm afraid that in less than a year, your Devil Star Arts deterrence will be useless. The origin of this war isn't entirely because of the Chaos Divine Tribe." Long Chen frowned. He understood what Edo meant. He nodded and moved his right hand, sending the heaven-swapping dragon bone to Edo. He had yet to fuse with this dragon bone. Once he did, Edo wouldn't be able to use it again. The heaven-swapping dragon bone was fundamentally different from other dragon bones. It was an ancient formation left behind by the Realm Lord. Even after Long Chen fused with it, if he wanted to use such a terrifying teleportation power, he would have to wait for the energy within to store itself or use his own endless energy to support it. Chapter 1249. The 8 primal chaos forces were located in the middle state, but they were intimidated by Long Chen's Devil Star. If not for this, the entire middle state would have been wiped out in a short period of time. Although there were many humans compared to the primal Chaos Divine Tribe, their cultivation levels were not on the same level. Long Chen and Adeo were fully prepared. Kong Henxing had been following behind Long Chen all this time. When she heard that Long Chen was going to bring everyone to the primal Chaos Galaxy, she had been looking for her mother. Kong Henxue had been gone for so long. She probably did not expect that Long Chen would also be heading to the primal Chaos Galaxy today. Adeo held the heavenly dragon bone again. He could still clearly sense the terrifying power and endless Tao patterns within it. If he studied it carefully, his cultivation level would improve by leaps and bounds. He was extremely talented. Ever since he obtained the primal Chaos Dragon Bone, he had comprehended many benefits by himself. Adeo stared at Long Chen. "I hope that one day, you will be able to end the chaos in the ancient sacred divine world." Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, Adeo's hand flashed with brilliance and entered the heavenly dragon bone again. The heavenly dragon bone shone with a divine radiance. Auspicious signs flowed continuously, and lines of formation runes appeared. Long Chen shook his head and sighed. Without any hesitation, he soared into the sky. Brilliance gathered in his hand and landed on the heavenly dragon bone. Long Chen's participation seemed to have restored the heavenly dragon bone to its original state in the primal chaos domain. Endless formation runes covered the sky. As far as the eye could see, mountains, lakes, and nothingness, as long as there were primal chaos divine tribe members, the formation runes would invade like a tidal wave. The 8 primal chaos divine tribe members soared into the sky and looked at Long Chen and the others from afar. Their expressions were not pleasant. Whether it was when they were teleported from the primal chaos domain to the middle state or when they were teleported from the middle state, the 8 primal chaos divine tribe members felt a deep sense of control. They could not even understand how the primal chaos dragon bone could be used continuously. This made them even more fearful of the ancient sacred divine world lord. The ancient sacred divine world lord had been dead for so long. Just the appearance of 2 primal chaos dragon bones had completely changed the future of the primal chaos domain. The various chaos god tribes gradually guessed that they would most likely return to the chaos domain. The 9 chaotic divine clans had once been sealed under the central region because they had angered the realm lord. They had never thought that they would be able to return to the chaotic starry sky one day. Where was the primal chaos divine race? What was the situation like now? Would they be able to establish a foothold there? Everything seemed to be a brand new beginning. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The first to disappear was the heavenly misfortune god's bloodline, followed by the heavenly void god, and then the heavenly divine power god. The members of the chaos god race came and went in a hurry. The central state seemed to have become a place they passed by. The experts from the various blessed lands looked at the vast array of runes in the space, and were shocked speechless. The appearance of the Chaos God tribe gave them an unprecedented shock. Long Chen and Ideo's figures also gradually disappeared. Kong Henshin seemed to be very curious about this teleportation formation that could traverse space. He circled around Long Chen and looked around. She had just turned around twice when she saw that her clothes were gradually turning into nothingness. Everyone had stepped into a peculiar spatial passageway again. Kong Henshin looked around and couldn't help but say to Long Chen, "Big brother, you're so powerful. When I came here with my mother, she repeatedly warned me not to try to traverse the chaotic starry sky by myself. Yet, you brought so many people with you and opened such a massive spatial passageway. I wonder if the battle there has already concluded." "Battle?" Long Chen looked at Kong Henshin and asked, "Didn't you and your mother come to the chaotic realm and the central state to search for information about the realm lord?" Kong Henshin nodded, then shook his head. "Many of the ancient star formations there have fallen into chaos. This has led to a chaotic battle between many primal chaos gods." Long Chen took a deep breath. He already knew what Kong Henshin was talking about. The chaotic starry sky was the place where the power of primal chaos was the richest in the entire ancient holy divine realm. It was equivalent to the border of the ancient holy divine realm. The entire ancient holy divine realm was surrounded by ancient star formations with 10,000 stars as the foundation. Close to 30% of these ancient formations had been left behind by the ancient holy divine realm lord using the undying Tao law. Now that the undying Tao law was gradually collapsing, this place was also affected. As he pondered, Long Chen sensed that the power in the spatial passageway was becoming more and more chaotic. He focused his gaze and saw that Doom was already on the verge of death. Doom was using his life to activate the heaven-changing dragon bone. Although Long Chen was still continuously injecting power into it, this power was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It was just as Doom had said. He wanted to use his life to send the various primal chaos gods back to the starry sky. No one knew how long the spatial passageway lasted. This time, the transmission was fundamentally different from the previous one. They were deep in the spatial passageway and couldn't sense anything from the outside. When the spatial passageway completely disappeared, everyone was standing in the void in mid-air. The heaven-changing dragon bone seemed to be pulled and flew toward Long Chen. Long Chen didn't look too good. If he hadn't transplanted the green wood into the dragon palace, he might not have been in a better state than when he had used the Devil Star technique. Doom didn't have a trace of life left in him. His life was about to end. He looked at Long Chen with an apologetic expression, as well as some relief. Long Chen was about to step forward but was stopped by Zhu Ziyin behind him. "I can save him and we'll write off our debt." Long Chen was stunned and immediately stared at Zhu Ziyin. Even Zhu Zizhua was stunned. Both of them were primal chaos gods from the heavenly destruction god bloodline. How could they save someone who was about to die? Moreover, Doom's current situation wasn't something that could be saved by just anyone. He had fused everything he had into the heaven-changing dragon bone. All the life in his body had been exhausted, and even his soul was about to wither. To put it simply, his current state was equivalent to his lifespan being exhausted and dying of old age. Long Chen stared at Zhu Ziyin, the descendant of the human race and the heavenly destruction god bloodline. He nodded and said, "If you can save him, we'll write off the debt of the chaotic mountain soul that I gave you that day." He had never taken Zhu Ziyin seriously. He only felt that the young man was being stubborn. Ever since he stepped into the primal chaos domain, Zhu Ziyin had been talking about saving his life. Now, it seemed that he wasn't lying. Zhu Ziyin nodded and flew toward Doom. He muttered under his breath, and his eyes shone with two completely different lights. One of the lights in his eyes was filled with unprecedented destructive power, while the other was filled with endless life. Chapter 1250. The strange power in Zhu Ziyin's eyes caused even Long Chen to be shocked. How could he have imagined that a human with the talent of the heavenly destruction god bloodline would have such a terrifying life force? This power did not originate from Zhu Ziyin's body. Instead, it was a kind of innate power similar to the aura of destruction. At this moment, Dao's withered divine soul actually released a trace of life force. A trace of the aura of misfortune appeared in his body again. All of this seemed weak, but it completely pulled him back from the gates of hell. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul could not help but say to Long Chen, "I was wrong this time. This young man is probably the most talented person in the history of the heavenly destruction god bloodline. His aura of destruction is actually enough to create life force. A person who was supposed to die has actually been given a trace of life force." Long Chen was enlightened when he heard this. This technique was equivalent to the transformation of yin and yang. When the power of destruction reached its peak, it would definitely give birth to a trace of life force. At this moment, Dao was already dead. However, under the stimulation of Zhu Ziyin's power of destruction, he had been given a trace of life force. This was why Zhu Ziyin had always said that he could save Long Chen's life. Zhu Ziyin slowly retreated from Dao's side to Long Chen's side. One of his eyes was filled with blood, and there were black marks all over it. He said in a low voice, "Whether he can live or not depends on himself. At least, he won't die now." Long Chen's figure flashed, and he directly rushed to Dao's side. Then, rays of divine light rapidly entered his body. Many of the Heaven Harmony Divine Nations traders could not help but shake their heads and sigh when they saw Dao's current state. The hatred in their hearts gradually disappeared. Now, apart from the humans who followed Long Chen, the rest of the humans still remained in the central state. It was as if they were completely isolated from the primal chaos divine race. Perhaps this was the best result. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. Dao's life force gradually stabilized, but Long Chen became weaker and weaker. This time, he used the power of the primal chaos golden codex and injected it into Dao's body. Dao stared at Long Chen. He seemed to be able to sense that the power in Dao's body was different from the others. He actually knelt down on both knees in front of Long Chen as a disciple. Long Chen accepted Dao's apprenticeship ceremony because he knew that this ceremony was not for him but for the Realm Lord's name. Dao probably didn't know that the Emperor Lord's remnant soul didn't reject him at this moment, which was equivalent to accepting him as a disciple. Doom Dao's actions attracted the attention of the distant heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline. More than a dozen sixth-order god emperors from the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline flew towards Huang Xiaolong and said to him, "Are you coming with us or not? Since our race has returned to the starry space, we must take back our ancestral land. The Realm Master is no longer here, and the punishment of the past will also vanish like smoke in thin air. The primal Chaos God tribe will eventually become the most powerful tribe in the ancient sacred divine world." The blood of the misfortune heavenly god's people seemed to be boiling. They were waiting for the misfortune Dao's answer. Even though Long Chen was standing beside the Calamity Dao, and even though Long Chen was the Realm Master's successor, the Calamity heavenly god's bloodline did not have any taboos. If he didn't have the Chaos Dragon Bone in his hands, he would have been suppressed by the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline. The relationship between Long Chen and the various primal Chaos God tribes could be said to be very subtle. Even though all of them wanted to kill Long Chen, they were all afraid of the terrifying power of the Chaos Dragon Bone. Hearing the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline's words, Doom Dao's gaze fell on Long Chen in the end, and he replied, "I will do my best to change everything." The two of them exchanged a glance and didn't say anything else. Doom Dao also turned around and left with the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline. Even though the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline saw Doom Dao's change, they weren't willing to give up on him no matter what. To them, Doom Dao was a rare talent, and he was even the successor of their future patriarch. They only hoped that Doom Dao would gradually change his view of the human race and Long Chen in the following days. After the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline left, Long Chen and the others looked into the distant void. Countless streaks of light streaked across the sky like shooting stars, disappearing into the distance. The 8 primal Chaos Divine tribes all had their own thoughts. In contrast, Long Chen and the others didn't know what to do. Many of them turned to look at Long Chen. Only the members of the Imperial College had already left. They left even faster than the 8 primal Chaos Divine tribes. Qing Xian didn't leave. She continued to follow behind Long Chen. She seemed to have become the person who had left the Imperial College to record Long Chen's life. Long Chen pondered for a moment before turning to look at Kong Henqing. He had come to the Primal Chaos Divine Tribe in order to obtain the remaining 7 Chaos Dragon Bones, so that he could prove his Dao and become a titled emperor. At this moment, there was no news about the Chaos Dragon Bones. Rather than fumbling around aimlessly, it was better to send Kong Henqing back to the Heavenly Space God's bloodline and try to obtain some information. Due to the unique nature of the Heavenly Space God's bloodline, they were second to none in the entire Primal Chaos Divine Tribe. "Shaoqing, take us to your family as guests." Long Chen stroked Kong Henqing's beautiful hair. He didn't try to hide anything. Kong Henqing happily agreed. It was as if she couldn't wait to see her mother. She didn't unleash her spatial power. Instead, she sped into the distance. She pointed at a blue and white streak of light in the sky and said excitedly, "That's my home. Mother will definitely be waiting for me there." Everyone followed closely behind her and left the void where they had been standing. An hour later, their bodies were drenched in cold sweat. Waves of shock had also surged through their hearts. They finally understood why this place was called the Primal Chaos Divine Tribe. One star after another floated in the void here. It was like a massive rock floating in a pond. Every star contained an unprecedented amount of chaotic power. It was as if the entire planet was formed from chaotic power. If the portion of chaotic power within the primal chaos domain was enough to sustain countless cultivators in the middle state realm, then any star here was probably equivalent to the total amount of chaotic power within the primal chaos domain. At this moment, everyone was following behind Kong Henshin. It was as if they didn't dare to take a single step away from her. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this sight. Kong Henshin couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle at the sight of everyone. She explained, "Don't get too close to these stars. Otherwise, they'll revert back to their original state. They belong to various primal chaos divine tribes, and they're all surrounded by special spell formations. If anything happens, powerful beings will travel through space to arrive." Everyone followed behind Long Chen. They didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. Long Chen didn't pay them any heed. Instead, he was listening to the information that the Imperial Master was transmitting to him. They were currently in a barren land in the Primal Chaos Divine Tribe. It didn't belong to any of the 5 Primal Chaos domains. Chapter 1251. Within the 5 chaotic regions, all of the planets floated within the chaotic void, and all of them were inhabited by the God tribe. Long Chen and the others followed Kong Henshin through the dense cluster of stars and headed toward the Heavenly Space God's territory. The Heavenly Space God's territory was a dazzling blue and white planet. Even though it was extremely far away and was obscured by countless stars, one could still detect its radiance. It was as bright as the scorching sun. Void Scar Star. This star was located within the first chaotic regions, and its radiance illuminated almost half of the first chaotic regions. After traveling for several hours, Kong Henshin led everyone through the chaotic regions and found a series of black hole-like regions above a few gigantic meteors. Everyone followed Kong Henshin through these black hole-like regions, and they appeared within another meteor in the blink of an eye. Long Chen couldn't help but be astonished by this feeling. These black hole-like regions didn't contain any spell formations or Dao patterns, yet they had the unique property of directly passing through space. Moreover, they were extremely stable. Long Chen and the others appeared on the other side almost instantaneously. It was no different from teleportation. The blue and white light before everyone's eyes became more and more dazzling. The full appearance of Void Scar Star gradually appeared before their eyes. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. Kong Henshin explained to everyone, "According to my mother, Void Scar Star should be as large as 4 Middle Continent cultivators." For Middle Continent cultivators? Everyone sighed in amazement. The human population of the chaotic regions was probably even smaller than the Middle Continent cultivators. Yet, they occupied this vast expanse of chaotic space. 2 hours later, Kong Henshin finally stopped on a blue and white circular platform that was 1,000 meters in diameter. This platform was also carved out from some kind of meteor. There were a total of 9 platforms like this floating in the void, and a blue and white pillar of light stood at the center of this platform, which soared tens of thousands of kilometers into the air. Everyone stood on the platform, and their vision was completely obscured by the entire Void Scar Star. They felt an unprecedented sense of astonishment, as if they were nothing more than specks of dust in the face of this star. However, the blinding light didn't bring about any scorching sensation. Instead, for some reason, they felt extremely calm. Everyone stepped into the blue and white pillar of light, and then, as if they were enveloped by the blue and white light, they transformed into shooting stars and flew toward the Void Scar Star. They could feel the terrifying power contained in the blue-white light that enveloped them. His right hand moved imperceptibly, and a human behind Long Chen was instantly enveloped by an invisible force. Crackle! The human's body was sliced into several pieces from the middle, and blood splattered through the air. Everyone felt as if they were facing a powerful enemy. However, when they turned to look at the leader of the Heavenly Space Gods group, they discovered that he had already disappeared from the spot. The human behind Long Chun quickly reformed his body. There was a look of horror on his face, and he exclaimed, "What terrifying strength! He's clearly only at the peak of the Fourth Order God Emperor realm, but he was able to destroy my body in an instant." Everyone was enraged, but there was also a trace of fear in their hearts. This human was a descendant of the primal chaos divine tribe and the human race. His cultivation was also at the Fifth Order God Emperor realm, but he was completely powerless against the Heavenly Space Gods group. The Heavenly Space Gods' innate talent was truly unfathomable. Long Chen's brows furrowed tightly. It seemed like the Heavenly Space Gods group wasn't a friendly place either. Even though the primal chaos divine tribe didn't discriminate against the human race, they didn't have a good impression of them either. It was clear that the Heavenly Space Gods group was trying to intimidate them and force them to leave the Void Hen planet as soon as possible. Long Chun took a deep breath and said, "Let's stay here for 2 days and digest the information we've gathered. After that, we'll be ready to leave at any time." Long Chun led everyone toward the defensive line opposite of Kong Henching's group. An hour later, they saw a few mountain ranges. There were many cave-like caves on these mountains. Everyone found a cave abode and entered it. However, Qing Xian couldn't help but ask Long Chun. Kong Henching was taken away by them just like that. Will anything happen to her? After all, she's not a true descendant of the Heavenly Space Gods group. Long Chun shook his head. He didn't think that anything would happen. After all, Kong Henching was the daughter of Kong Henshue and the Realm Lord. Chapter 1252. The density of the chaotic power within the Void Scar Star was beyond everyone's imagination. In just a short 2 or 3 days, everyone felt as if they had been reborn, and the chaotic power around them had become purer. It was as if the murky water in a pond had been swapped for seawater. Their cultivation bases hadn't changed, but their combat prowess had increased by 20%. During these 3 days, Long Chun told everyone everything he knew about the primal chaos starry sky from the Imperial Lord. "We'll leave this place tomorrow, and find a way to find the next chaotic dragon bone," Long Chun instructed Elder Su and the others. Elder Su and the others couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. "This isn't the middle state or the chaotic realm. We don't have a place to stay, and we'll probably die very quickly if we wander around. It's best if we think of a way to find the chaotic dragon bone first. We can't just wander around aimlessly." Long Chen nodded in agreement. "After we leave this place, we should be able to find the chaotic dragon bone very quickly with the Imperial College's information-gathering abilities." After some discussion, Long Chen and the others decided to leave the Void Scar Star today. Even though the Imperial College's members had been itching for action, they didn't take the initiative to part ways with Long Chen and the others this time. Although they were extremely fast, they also understood that they might not be absolutely safe in the starry sky where the Chaos Divine Tribe was spread all over. For example, the Heavenly Space God before them. These people had the ability to kill the Imperial College's members. Their innate ability allowed them to manipulate space and time, which was similar to the Imperial College's ability. However, in a certain sense, they were the Imperial College's nemesis. After packing up, everyone set off on their journey and flew into the sky. They flew toward the Void Scar Star. The Void Scar Star seemed to be undergoing some kind of battle. The light around it was somewhat similar to the protective spell formation on the continent. If anyone wanted to enter the Void Scar Star, they would have to pass through the bluish-white pillars of light on the 9-disc. Even the members of the Imperial College were no exception. If they wanted to leave, it would be much easier. They could just leave the Void Scar Star. The mountains below their feet gradually became smaller and smaller. Just as they were about to enter the Void Scar Star again, the space before them suddenly began to twist and warp. Under the gazes of the crowd, Kong Henching actually walked out from within. With tears on her face, she suddenly threw herself into Long Chen's arms and cried with a choked voice, "Big brother, save my mother. I know that only you can save her." Buzz. Before Long Chen could say anything, the space behind Kong Henching started to distort again, and 3 young men walked out of it. The trio's faces immediately turned ashen. One of them was the one who had tried to intimidate Long Chen that day. However, he was standing behind another man at this moment. The man in the lead frowned, and a pair of black and white wings grew out of his back. This pair of wings was extremely peculiar. One was actually real while the other was illusory. Moreover, there were dense and strange markings on it. He stared at Long Chen with a dark expression. "Qing don't mess around. We are trying to figure out a way to deal with Auntie Shui. We will definitely give you an explanation. He's just a human. What can he do to save your mother?" As he spoke, he stared coldly at Long Chen. There was even a hint of killing intent in his gaze. Long Chen ignored this person's gaze and patted Kong Henching's shoulder gently. "Don't worry. If there's anything, just tell me. I will definitely save your mother." Kong Henching was the emperor's descendant, and Kong Henshue was Long Chen's master's wife. In his heart, he had already treated Kong Henching as his younger sister. Moreover, Kong Henshue had saved Qing Xian's life when she had appeared that day. If something really happened, Long Chen would definitely do something about it. Kong Henching seemed to trust Long Chen very much. In fact, Kong Henching had personally witnessed how Long Chen had used the power of the demon star to destroy the heavenly death god's bloodline in order to suppress the 9 chaos god tribes in the middle state. Long Chen was the most likely person to save his mother. Kong Henching wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and hurriedly said, "Mother is trapped in the star prison. If we don't save her in 3 years, she will die there." Star prison? Long Chen's pupils constricted. The star prison was a place unique to the heavenly void devouring god's bloodline. This place was infamous even among the various chaos god tribe. It was rumored that the heavenly void devouring god's bloodline had condensed the light of millions of stars to form this place. Once trapped in the star prison, even a 9th-order god emperor would only need 9 years to be completely destroyed by the starlight. Before Long Chen could calm down, the winged young man with the heavenly space god bloodline suddenly stepped forward and pulled Kong Henching away from Long Chen. Streaks of spatial fluctuations radiated from his body, emitting a terrifying aura that suppressed Kong Henching to the spot. "Human, hurry up and take your people and scram from the Void Scar Star. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." His eyes were filled with killing intent, and it seemed like he was infuriated by Kong Henching's attitude toward Long Chen. Kong Henching tried to break free from Kong Henluyun's suppression, but she couldn't move an inch. She sobbed and said, "You have no intention of saving my mother. Only Big Brother Long Chen has a chance to help me, Long Chen? What right does a human have to make an enemy out of the heavenly void devouring god bloodline? Qing come back with me." He had completely lost his patience. Long Chen's expression also gradually turned cold. Kong Henluyun's actions toward Kong Henching had already infuriated him. Wang. Long Chen was just about to step forward and stop Kong Henluyun when he suddenly sensed a terrifying power erupting from Kong Henching's body. This power was like a spark that could set a prairie ablaze at any moment. The surrounding space became completely chaotic, and even the laws of Tao seemed to be crumbling. Kong Henching sobbed and said, "I don't want to go back with you. I want my mother to come back." Kong Henluyun's expression changed drastically, and he instantly disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already 10,000 meters away. Long Chen and the others retreated in a frenzy as they stared at Kong Henching in shock. Terrifying power erupted into the heavens, and that mysterious power began to expand at a rate visible to the naked eye. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a dozen or so breaths, A spatial rift was forcefully torn open in the sky, and an elderly man from the heavenly space god bloodline walked out from within. He waved a hand and suppressed the space around Kong Henching. Then, he shattered all of the power around Kong Henching, and it was as if the space and time around Kong Henching had come to a complete standstill. After the elderly man appeared, Kong Henluyun and the others all bowed toward him. Chapter 1253. Seeing that Kong Henching trusted Long Chen so much, Void Scar Tabo couldn't help but steal a few more glances at her. Space trembled slightly, and he shook his head helplessly. Ching don't throw a tantrum. He won't be able to save your mother from the star prison. After he said that, a ripple appeared in his hand once again. Kong Henching wanted to say something, but her eyes slowly closed, and she fainted in front of everyone. The old man looked at Long Chen again and said, "It seems like Ching has a good relationship with you. If you need anything, feel free to let me know. If you're willing, you can continue to stay here." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Just pretend that you didn't hear what Ching said." The old man prepared to leave with Void Scar and Flowing Cloud. When Void Scar and Flowing Cloud heard that Long Chen and the others could stay here as they pleased, they snorted coldly. Even though they were unwilling to do so, they didn't dare to disobey the old man. Just as the two of them were about to leave, Long Chen suddenly said, "Since I've heard of this matter, I'm going to take care of it. I won't sit idly by and do nothing about the star prison. When Kong Henching wakes up, tell her that I'll bring her mother back within 3 years." Long Chen's resolute voice caused Air Scar, Flowing Cloud, and the old man to freeze. Void Scar and Flowing Cloud roared with anger. "You're just a fourth-order god emperor. What gives you the right to spout such arrogant words? Even though you're considered one of the strongest in the human race, anyone in the same realm as you in the primal chaos divine race can easily kill you." As Void Scar and Flowing Cloud spoke, a young man from the heavenly space god clan couldn't help but sneer. This person was the one who had shown them his strength back then. With his fourth-order god emperor realm cultivation, he was able to slice apart the human behind Long Chen's back. It was as if he had confirmed Void Scar and Flowing Cloud's words. Void Scar and Flowing Cloud frowned, and just as they were about to speak, Long Chen interrupted them. "Anyone in the same realm as me can kill me? Why don't we test it out? The person behind you is a fourth-order god emperor realm. Why don't you let him fight with me? If he wins, we will leave immediately and cut off all contact with Kong Henching. If he loses, I only want the Sky Magatama in your hand." As Long Chen's words fell, Void Scar Tabo, Void Scar Flowing Cloud, and the others were stunned. No one had thought that Long Chen would issue a challenge at this time. Void Scar Tuoba looked at Long Chen with contempt. He seemed to think that Long Chen's temperament was too bad. Although Streak Wind Cloud's words were somewhat arrogant, in his opinion, they were the truth. It was one thing for Long Chen to keep shouting about wanting to save Kong Henshui, but Kong Hen Tuobo only thought that Long Chen was too ambitious. Now that he had to compete with a fourth-order god emperor from the heavenly space god's bloodline, he was asking for humiliation. Void Scar turned around and said to Void Scar and Flowing Cloud, "Ching owes them a debt of gratitude. Let's not waste time here. Let's go." Void Scar Flowing Cloud sneered. "Since he wants my Sky Magatama, I will naturally give him a chance." After saying that, "Black Rain, go and spar with him." Void Scar Flowing Cloud gave a signal to the fourth-order god emperor behind him, and that person immediately rushed to Long Chen's side. He stared at Long Chen without even bothering to look at him. "It seems like you really didn't see my display of strength that day. The difference between the human race and the primal chaos divine race is not something you can imagine." Long Chen sneered. "Whether that's the case or not, we'll know when we fight." Void Scar Tabo wanted to say something, but he stopped himself. In the end, he couldn't be bothered with the two of them. He wanted to teach Long Chen a lesson. Black Rain stood in front of Long Chen and said, "If you can take 10 moves from me, I'll consider it your victory and give you the Sky Magatama in my hand." Long Chen suddenly waved his hand and pointed at Void Scar Flowing Cloud. "If you lose, I want the Sky Magatama in his hand." Void Scar Black Rain frowned, but he didn't dare to agree. He looked at Void Scar Flowing Cloud. The people behind Long Chen were also confused. They didn't know what the Sky Magatama Long Chen was talking about was. Long Chen and the others had already planned to leave the Void Scar Star. Why would they start a conflict with Void Scar Flowing Cloud? Void Scar Flowing Cloud hesitated for a moment before nodding his head, indicating for Void Scar Black Rain to agree. When Void Scar Black Rain saw this, he couldn't help but ask, "Flowing Cloud, you're about to break through. You can't let anything happen to the Sky Magatama." Void Scar Flowing Cloud sneered, "Just make your move. If you can't even defeat a 4th Order God Emperor, you'll be dead." The Sky Magatama was an item born from the heavenly space god's Sea of Knowledge. To a certain extent, the Sky Magatama could directly control the power of space. The Sky Magatama was extremely valuable in the Chaos Starry Sky, and it could be said that it was priceless on the black market. Of course, this was also because of the heavenly space god's Sea of Knowledge. If anyone discovered that someone was selling the Sky Magatama, they would suffer the wrath of the heavenly space god's Sea of Knowledge. The Sky Magatama was directly related to the innate talent of every member of the heavenly space god's Sea of Knowledge. If they lost the Sky Magatama, they would never be able to advance in the God Emperor realm. In fact, they would slowly lose all of their innate talent. As such, the Sky Magatama was equivalent to half a life for any heavenly space god's Sea of Knowledge. I didn't think that you would have some skill. However, my words still count. If you don't lose within 10 moves, then I'll admit defeat. Although Black Rain was slightly surprised that Long Chen had accepted his simple probing attack, he did not mind. As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body disappeared from where he stood. Not even a trace of his aura was left behind. Elder Su and the others behind Long Chen could not help but look around. However, none of them could detect where Black Rain had gone. Black Rain had completely disappeared. Spatial Rainy Night. Although Black Rain's figure had disappeared, his voice still rang out in everyone's ears. This poetic name of a spell technique caused everyone to feel an unprecedented pressure. They were all dumbfounded, not daring to move in the slightest. With Long Chen as the center, the entire space in front of them seemed to be filled with boundless killing intent. Tens of thousands of threads fell toward Long Chen in the entire space. These threads were not Tao laws, nor were they divine abilities powered by Chaos Divine Power. Instead, they were completely made up of spatial energy. At this moment, the space within 100 meters of Long Chen had become a land of death. Qing Xian and the others looked on from afar. They felt as if Long Chen had been enveloped by a massive sheet of silk. However, every inch of this sheet of silk was filled with killing intent. This was a spatial storm. Within the storm, the entire space transformed into a torrential downpour of sharp objects that rained down upon Long Chen. At this moment, everyone finally understood why the heavenly space god was able to dominate the chaotic divine tribe and monopolize the majority of the resources in the first chaotic realm. Just this Black Rain technique alone was enough to leave many chaotic divine tribe members in the dust. The heavenly space god tribe's control over space was enough to make them invincible against cultivators of the same cultivation base. Long Chen's expression also became a little more grave. This type of spatial attack was indeed extremely dangerous. Although his physical body was powerful, he did not want to take the risk of facing this spatial attack head-on. He made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and his halberd appeared in his hand. Buzz buzz. The halberd did not move, but the first seal on it was indeed glowing with a divine light. The light wasn't very strong. It was just like the light of a firefly. However, this weak light instantly caused the entire space to calm down. The space that had enveloped Long Chen like a sheet of silk was once again smoothed out. The terrifying spatial attack also disappeared without a trace. This scene caused Void Scar Tabo, Void Scar Lu Yun, and the others' expressions to change. Then, they stared at Long Chen's halberd with confusion in their eyes, as well as the first seal on it. What is this thing? What a terrifying sealing power! Just the slightest bit of it is enough to suppress the space around him. Void Scar Tabo immediately recognized the reason behind this. How could he have known that the 3 seals on Long Chen's halberd were formed by the World Suppression Cauldron's artifact spirit and cauldron? Although the broken World Suppression Cauldron had transformed into a seal, if it couldn't even suppress the space around Long Chen, then it would be an insult to its past glory. Once upon a time, a single cauldron could suppress the entire ancient holy divine world. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Void Scar Black Rain still did not appear. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Before anyone could react, a dazzling streak of light suddenly appeared behind Long Chen. This streak of light looked like a saber projection, but it was actually enveloped by a formless spatial power. This spatial power intertwined with the saber projection before crashing down on Long Chen with unstoppable force. Long Chen swung his halberd backward, and the 2 attacks instantly collided. Rumble. Although the saber projection was blocked, the spatial power that struck it instantly exploded. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, not only did the attacks not stop, but they also sped up. In the blink of an eye, terrifying saber projections enveloped in spatial power filled the surroundings. These saber projections were all personally unleashed by Void Scar Black Rain, so the World Suppression Cauldron was unable to completely suppress them. Elder Su and the others sighed with emotion upon seeing this. In the face of such an attack, the heavenly space god was practically invincible. Chapter 1255. Black rain of the heavenly space god's bloodline dashed through the void like a specter. Every single one of his attacks left no trace behind, but each one of his attacks was imbued with terrifying power. At this moment, Black Rain's heart was filled with shock. He couldn't believe that Long Chen would be able to block his attacks so easily. At this rate, even 100 attacks wouldn't be enough to determine the victor. To them, space-time was the best defense, but it was also their strongest attack. Black Rain couldn't hold back any longer, and in the blink of an eye, the 10th attack had arrived. A bluish-white light flashed through his eyes, and his hands descended rapidly. The long blade in his hand started to melt at a speed visible to the naked eye. After the long blade disappeared, it reappeared out of thin air. This time, it was covered in bluish-white runes, and it exuded a terrifying aura. If you can block this attack, I'll consider myself defeated today. Black Rain muttered to himself, and his voice traveled into the ears of everyone present. Even though they couldn't sense Black Rain's location, they could clearly feel the terrifying killing intent and aura radiating from him. Even Void Scar and Flowing Cloud felt that they had underestimated Long Chen's combat strength. He snorted coldly and said, "This bastard can actually make Black Rain use his space blade. He can be considered as a fourth-order God Emperor realm expert." Void Scar and Flowing Cloud nodded slightly, and it was clear that they had acknowledged Long Chen's combat strength. They turned to Void Scar and Flowing Cloud and said, "Tell Black Rain not to take his life." As soon as the 2 of them finished speaking, they saw Long Chen suddenly take the initiative to attack. A smile appeared on his face, and his halberd sliced through the air, aiming for a spot several dozen meters above his head. A terrifying power surged out from his halberd. The halberd flashed with a brilliant light, and it actually pierced through space. Rumble! The sound of space rumbling reverberated through the air. Poochie! Under everyone's watchful eyes, fresh blood spurted out from the crack in space. When Long Chen retrieved his halberd, it was actually Void Scar and Black Rain's body. The long blade in Black Rain's hand had been reduced to dust, leaving only the hilt in his hand. His face was filled with terror as he stared at Long Chen and the halberd that had pierced through his chest. He could clearly feel that Long Chen could take his life at any moment. I admit defeat. When Black Rain sensed the terrifying aura radiating from the halberd, he lost all will to fight. Bang! Long Chen's halberd streaked across the air, creating a curtain of light. Black Rain was flung to Void Scar and Flowing Cloud's side. Lend me the Sky Magatama. Void Scar and Flowing Cloud stared blankly at Black Rain, whose chest had been pierced through. His face instantly turned ashen. Void Scar and Flowing Cloud looked at Long Chen's departing figure and couldn't help but shake their heads with bitter smiles on their faces. Void Scar muttered to himself, "It looks like he's really planning to head to the heavenly god space swallowing star prison. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to obtain your Sky Magatama through Black Rain's challenge. They're from the chaotic realm, but they don't know that the chaotic realm has undergone an earth-shattering transformation. I hope he can return alive." Kong Hen shook his head helplessly as he spoke. Then, he disappeared with Kong Hen Qing. After Void Scar left, Void Scar Flowing Cloud flapped his wings and smashed half of Black Rain's body into dust. He roared, "You actually made me lose my Sky Magatama! A Fourth Order God Emperor actually suppressed you!" Black Rain trembled on the spot, and he didn't dare to resist. He endured the pain and tried to explain himself. "Even though he's only a Fourth Order God Emperor, his strength is far above mine. His final attack was able to predict the crucial moment when I was about to unleash my technique, and he accurately broke through space to defeat me." Void Scar Flowing Cloud glared at Black Rain, and he could feel the Sky Magatama's aura weakening. On the other side, you're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.